So how you doing?
I'm great, man.
What are you doing down here in Florida?
I've been in Florida for a week. First few days, there's this convention every year put on by Brian Barczyk called Animal Con, and it's like all of the biggest animal people basically get together and do meetings and conventions, and a couple days are open to the public, a couple days are industry only. So did that, and then I just launched a YouTube channel, as preposterous as that sounds. And so we spent the last week filming for YouTube, doing just fun Florida. Dude, Florida's like, it's a playground for animal people, you know? So there's just so much stuff to do here. So that's what we spent the week doing, just running around doing fun stuff.
Oh, that's cool, man.
Yeah,
I just, Manny was in here about a month ago telling us all kinds of his recent crazy escapades.
Have you ever done any fossil stuff in Florida?
I personally have never done any fossil stuff, but I know people who have. What
Boom.
the fuck is
Those
this,
are for you.
dude?
Those are from yesterday.
What
so
are
yesterday
these?
on the South Florida River, we dove. There was a flood warnings in place, okay? So there's rushing water.
Whoa.
And we're like, oh, should we do this? Scuba dove, 12 feet deep, not deep, black water. So you got 2 inches of visibility. Braille diving on the bottom, feeling for fossils.
You can't see anything.
Nothing. We found 24 species yesterday. We gave most of it to a museum, but that is a fossilized prehistoric horse tooth. So that's a tooth from an ancient horse. And
what?
Yeah, that's a couple million years old.
How do you know?
So I don't. I'm very novice at this. Yesterday was my first day doing it. But the guys I went out with are experts. They run a thing called Dig, Dive, Discover.
Okay.
And that is the biggest, albeit not perfect, but the biggest megalodon tooth I found. So I wanted to give it to you.
Dude, that thing is
It's pretty dope. It's not perfect. I'm a novice. I'm sure one day I'll get a good one.
So how old do you think?
Like 6 million years.
6 million years old, bro.
Isn't that cool?
That's wild.
Yeah. I'm not positive on the dating. Like I said, I'm really
so
novice.
Cool.
Your listeners will probably be like, that's not 6, it's 6.2. But yeah, it's something like that. And I was pretty stoked because it's like, I've done a lot of stuff in the animal space, especially in the extinct animal space, but looking for actual fossils from some of these animals that I've studied for a long time was a pretty cool experience.
That's amazing. How are you a big like free diver, spear fisherman?
I used to be really big. I mean, I still do a lot of it, but I used to be really big in the competitive circuits in free dive spearfishing. Yeah, had a bunch of world records, bunch of pole spear records.
Really?
Yeah, not competitive. Like I didn't go to competitions and stuff like that. I just used to chase these trophies and go all over the world spearfishing and free diving, and I still do it a lot. I mean, I shot a beautiful white sea bass like a week ago before I came out here in California.
Is that on your Instagram?
I think so.
I think I saw that.
Yeah, nice fish. And I still do it a lot, but now I just do it for food. I love getting out there. It's a good escape from the family. Dive in the ocean, find a nice fish to feed us for a couple of weeks. It's still great.
Yeah, I grew up spearfishing and free diving around here.
Yeah,
but
I knew
like
that.
doing that in California always scared the shit out of me. I imagine that would be so goddamn spooky.
Well, it's different, right? So we have kelp forests out there.
Right.
And the kelp forests it's like taking a hike in a redwood forest or in a cypress swamp, like big vertical structure all around you at all times, navigating your way through an underwater jungle, basically. And super fun, man. I mean, the colors in California, it's all these golds and greens and big white sea bass, and then hopefully you don't run into the big tax man, the great white shark. And they're always kind of lurking on the outside. So yeah, it can be a little spine tingling at times.
Well, the great whites, I imagine, would be, you'd rather see a great white spearfishing than a fucking bull shark.
Well, we don't get bulls in California, so
Right.
I've run into them here.
Yeah.
I've run into them here, like diving off the Jupiter Ledge and stuff. Have you ever done that dive?
No.
So
no.
down in
only,
Jupiter.
mainly in the Gulf for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. Down in Jupiter, Florida, we filmed a show down there a few years ago called Face the Beast for the History Channel. And we had these crazy kids. Good buddy of mine, he passed away. Mike Dornelis was there with us. He had all these bull sharks like super revved up, shaking this bait crate. These bull sharks are like coming in, they're swooping in between you and the crate. You're pushing them off. He's like blasé. He's just like, yeah, this is what you do. Is he's like pushing bull sharks left and right. And not me, dude. I've been around bull sharks, but not like that. And they're crazy. They're just like, it's like a bulldog versus a Great Dane, you know? Run into a white shark, it's big, it's more powerful. An individual can probably do more damage, but then you're with bull sharks like a pack of bulldogs, you know? You're just like, or pack of Rottweilers. You're like, oh, these things can tear me to shreds.
They're way more aggressive.
Way more.
Way more testosterone than the great white sharks.
The highest testosterone of any shark in the world is those bull sharks. Yeah, they're scary.
Manny was saying that he's more afraid of like lemon sharks than any other shark.
Well, him, Chris Gillette, my buddy Mike Dornelis, myself, I can list about 10 more people. We've all been bitten by, we all talk about the big scaries. We've all been bitten by lemon sharks.
Really?
Yeah.
You've been bitten by a lemon?
That's a scar from a lemon right there. And then I have one on my foot as well, where both completely separate occasions, they just sort of sneak up on you and just bam. They suck.
God damn, bro. I think Manny's been bitten by like 7 different species of sharks.
He's been bitten by everything. He's insane.
Have you seen the videos of the guys, I don't know, I think they're on the east coast of Florida, like off the coast of Jupiter or like Sebastian maybe. They go out and they chum up all the bull sharks, and then they swoop down on them. They shoot the cobia that swim like off the backs of them.
I've done it. It's crazy.
You've done that?
Yeah, it's wild. And the cobia and the bull sharks get so conditioned to what's going on that you pull the trigger, and as the band snap, the bull shark darts off, but then it just does a circle back to try and eat your cobia. So if you don't stone the cobia or you don't get it in really quickly, the bull sharks just turn around and come straight back for the fish. So you have this like, from my limited experience, I've done it twice, you have this like 45-second tops window to land that fish, or it just gets ripped to shreds.
Dude. I heard now all you have to do is go out there and just pop your bands a couple times and the bull sharks will just show up.
I think so. I think they are that conditioned to freedivers. I mean, it's like ringing the dinner bell. You know, you go out there, they're not typically eating these cobia because the cobia are smart enough to stay behind them and stay lateral to them. And then somebody comes along and jabs a spear into it and sort of just leaves it wounded on a silver platter for them.
Oh, God, dude.
We should go. I'll take you. It'd be fun.
Dude, I'd be fucking terrified. I don't know if I could do that,
It's
man.
worth it. It's so much fun. It's a rodeo.
You never gotten in any hairy situations with those bull sharks out there?
No.
Really?
No. Oh, that's not true. I got one story. Oh, man. Should I throw my buddy under the bus? I should. So we're filming that show I was telling you about, Face the Beast, with this kid, Andrew Eucles, right? And if you've never seen Andrew Eucles, he'd be a great guest for you. But he's this wild Australian kid. Like, he's an absolute maniac. Like, he makes Manny look tame. Like, he's nuts.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, that's not a dig at Manny, but Andrew's nuts. He's nuts. And I love Andrew. He's a crazy dude. But I got to preface it by saying this. He's not a waterman, right? He's not like us. He didn't grow up on the ocean. He grew up, in the bush, outback of Australia. He's just not a waterman. He can swim, whatever. But do our first show. It's about catching these monster crocodiles in Myanmar. He's unbelievable. Builds this insane trap, catches this huge crocodile, wrestles at everything. Second episode of the show is digging into shark behavior. So I'm the producer of the show, and I'm like, all right, Andrew, like, we're going to go down to Jupiter. We're going to do all this stuff with the bull sharks, blah, blah, blah. He's like, yeah, no worries, Chooch. That'll be all right. And I'm like, okay, great. That's my best Australian, by the way. And I'm like, all right, let's go do this thing. So we jump in the ledge. Mike, like I said, he's shaking up these bait crates and getting these bull sharks in. And I'm like, I'm the producer of this show. So I'm like, listen, Andrew, there's one thing you can't do, which is swim into the chum slick. Okay, you can swim all around. You can push the bull sharks off, whatever, talk about their behavior. But if you get, when Mike shakes that crate, if you get down current of that right in front of it, the bull sharks come shooting in to eat all the chum. And if you're in the middle of it, they're going to bite you. Yeah, no worries, Chooch. I would never do that. Rah, rah, rah. And I'm like, all right, sounds good, bud. So we hit the water, and literally, I would say 15 seconds in, Mike goes down, shakes the crate. Andrew hits the water. He dives straight in front of the bait crate. I don't know if he was being dumb. I don't know if he was being defiant. I don't know if he was unaware. I screamed at him like crazy. And these bull sharks come shooting in. And Mike, my cameraman, Johnny, and I, it's all on free dive. We're all used to doing shark work. We all zoom in and are like back to back, just pushing these sharks off Andrew. And he like curls into a ball because he's like, what the fuck? Because these sharks come shooting in at him. And he like curls into a ball. And luckily nobody got bitten. Mike got really, really close. Like, he pushed the shark, and the shark chomped like this, like bam, 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 right by his forearm, trying to hold the shark off Eucles. And we popped back up. This all happened in 20 seconds, right? Because it's a free dive. Pop back up. And I'm like, get the fuck back to the fucking boat, Andrew. You idiot. You didn't listen to a word I said. Like, you're grounded. I was furious. I thought we were going to kill this guy. And it was just so hairy because the way these sharks just came in, all like eyes rolled back in their head, mouth open, teeth exposed, chomping, trying to get to the bait. Not trying to hurt Andrew or me or Mike or Johnny, which was, thank God nobody got hurt. But they were trying to get to the bait, and this kid just swam into the center of it. And that was when I literally called it there. I was like, all right, everybody back to the boat, rethinking the strategy. Like, this is a bad play. And that was the closest we ever came to a big problem.
Were they bulls?
Bulls, all bulls.
Oh, my
I have video of it. I'll
God,
send it to you.
dude.
It's crazy.
That's fucking nuts,
It
man.
was like 12, 14 bulls all around at one time. Yeah.
So what do you do? Like, how do you push them off without getting your fucking hand chomped off?
Well, I've learned over time, just from doing this with tigers and hammerheads and everything else, people think you just want to like push them on the nose, but you don't, a shark will turn and snap and bite you a bunch of different places if you touch them. But if you use like the bottom of your palm, like the lower part of your palm, and put it right on their nose and just sort of like twitch or rub a little bit to stimulate their ampullae of Lorenzini, that specialized organ they have on the front of their nose, they slow down because it's like an overstimulation of their sensory organ. So no matter what, they slow down. Now, when you do that, their eyes will roll back in their head and their mouths will most of the time open. So they are like, like kind of kind of going for you. But as long as you don't just hold it there and try and like sit and you just gently push it away, like not towards your body, but away, and then pull your hand back at a relatively quickly so that you pull your hand back before they come out of that overstimulation state, it's surprisingly easy to actually deflect a shark that's coming at you.
Whoa.
Now, keep in mind, these aren't sharks that are trying to attack you. These are sharks that are swimming towards you to get to the bait or pass right by you or to investigate. If this is a great white going for you, like Seal Island style, doesn't matter how hard you're pushing their noses.
If it's hungry, I think that's the big difference.
Yeah.
If they're really hungry, then you're fucked no matter what.
If they truly see you as food, I say this to everybody that I get in the water with. I say this to everybody that I work with big animals with, on land, crocs, sharks, big cats, anything. If you act like prey, they're going to treat you like prey. If you act like a dominant predator, they're going to respect you, right? So if you get scared, nervous, small, twitchy, fast motions, they're like, oh, this is a fish and it's scared of me, or this is whatever. This is a piece of bait and it's going to act like prey. And I'm going to treat it like prey. If you can puff your chest up, act confident, swim right at the shark that's swimming at you, they backpedal. It's like getting into a fight with a guy at a bar and then you're more aggressive. You're like, wow, what are you going to do? And the guy's like, whoa, sorry, man, sorry.
Right.
It's that same thing. Like if you back down, they're going to walk all over you. If you can sort of puff up and present yourself as an equal, they'll more often than not back down.
Right. That's fucking nuts, dude. I forgot to drink hold on, I gotta drink my secret sauce drink.
Dude, do it. Get your greens in.
I should have drank this an hour ago. I might be more awake.
Nah, you're good. I had a 5-hour energy on the way here. I'm wired. Feels good.
Bro, you gotta get these things. They're so good.
What is it? Let me see it.
It's called Magic Mind. It's got like all these amazing herbs, or not herbs, but just like nutrients in them. It's got matcha, adaptogen, nootropics.
Oh, wow.
It's like, dude, it's like brain fuel.
Ooh, where do you get these?
It's clutch for the podcast too, because when you're like sitting here talking to people for so long, and you want to be like super focused and awake, but you don't want to be like super jittery, like you drink a 5-hour energy. That shit is clutch, man.
Yeah, you don't want. It's not all about the caffeine. It's
I'll email them and I'll have them send you. They send me this shit for free.
Oh, thanks.
So they sponsor the podcast, but I'll have them send you a bunch too. It's so clutch for recording podcasts.
Looks great. I'd love to try it. Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Anyways, what was you talking? Oh, did you see the video in Egypt of that dude getting eaten by a tiger shark?
It is horrific.
That is the worst video of a shark attack.
I'm getting like little goosebumps talking about it because it's just like playing that back in my mind. And do you know the whole situation? It was like a guy on vacation with his dad.
He was a Russian on vacation with his dad, I think, and there was footage of him on a kayak previously, and he was out there like videoing himself or whatever, and somehow he got off the kayak.
Yeah,
and he was just swimming. But I
believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I think there was like signs to not swim in the area. Like there was something known about not swimming there. I believe. Really? I think so. I might be mixing up with.
Well, they were
story.
right next to a dock where there was fishing boats.
That's what it was. Fish cleaning station. There was a fish cleaning station right there, and I think there was a known tiger shark that would hang out in the area. And yeah, the like watching it actually grab the guy and like his arm flailing and stuff, and he like comes up and in Russian screams like "Help, Dad!" or something like that. Yeah. Oh, dude. I kind of.
It's the worst footage of a shark that I've ever seen of a shark killing somebody.
It's horrific. You want to see something pretty crazy? Not to deflect from that, but you want to see what happened to me day before yesterday?
Yes.
Nobody has seen this, and this is all. Click that video right there. It's only 8 seconds long. Turn the volume on. And I used to carry a big, bulky handheld one. Ready? I just got struck by lightning.
What?
Yeah, this was 2 days ago. always had a GPS.
Watch.
And I used to carry a big, bulky handheld one.
Let's see it zap me. You see the lightning come down.
Dude, oh my. And you're in the water?
In the water. It hammered the shit out of me.
What?
My legs and butt were so sore because I was standing like waist deep or like thigh deep. And my legs and butt were so sore. This was day before yesterday, and I got hammered by that lightning. And I still, to this moment, have this terrible metallic taste in my mouth. When I walked in here, I had 3 pieces of gum in my mouth. Can't get this metal taste out of my mouth.
That's fucking insane.
I've never seen a video of somebody getting hit by lightning before.
Where is that?
In the Southern Everglades, day before yesterday.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we're
bro.
filming promos for Garmin because I have a thing with Garmin.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah, and I'm standing in the swamp.
I just got one of those.
Dude, isn't it great?
I love it.
Which one is that? Do you know?
The Phoenix 7.
Fantastic watch.
I just swapped it out, my old watch, for this one, and it's amazing because it fucking lasts like 30 days on a charge.
Game changer. It has all your metrics. Like for me, being out in the wilderness a lot, it's got all my tracking stuff. I can connect it to my phone. I can connect my phone to my InReach, which is like a communication device, so I can talk to people. I love my stuff from them. But
dude, this is the best watch I've ever had. Hands down.
Straight up.
The only thing I can't figure out is how to connect my Spotify to it. I wish I could figure out how to like connect my music to it.
Oh, I don't know. I've never tried that.
Really?
That's interesting. But
shout out to Garmin. Hit the link in the description for 10% off.
There you go. But yeah, so we're out there just filming these little promo pieces, and yeah, sure enough, my producer Mitch, he goes, dude, I think you should get out of the water. Like, he's from Florida. I'm from California, so I think I know it all. And he's from Florida, and he's like, dude, you should get out of the water. Like, thunder and lightning's pretty bad. I'm like, shut up. Nothing's going to happen. Literally 2 minutes later, bam, and I'm just like, like got fully fried. And yeah, like you see it in the video there. Just that's a video of the video, but you know, like my legs and butt like failed. I like sort of started to drop and got zapped, and then ran out of the water. But it was obviously way too late by that point.
How the fuck are you alive, dude?
I don't know. I feel great.
Oh my God, bro.
Isn't that nuts?
That is absolutely insane. I've never seen a video like that before.
Yeah, we're gonna. Nobody's seen it before. Where
are you gonna put that on your YouTube?
I don't know. Probably everywhere, to be honest, because I've never seen a video like that. We'll definitely throw it on the YouTube, put it on our podcast channel and TikTok and Instagram and all that crap, because it's crazy. I mean, it's fucking wild.
Oh my Lord.
I was shocked, to say the least.
Yeah. You're probably gonna live longer now. It probably like lengthened the telomeres on your DNA. Now you're gonna like have like, I don't know, you're gonna live long.
So that morning I woke up and chugged like a pretty good amount of cold brew, and then had a 5-hour energy on the way there, and then got shocked by lightning. So I just kept hoping I'd like wake up with like sparkle fingers or something.
You're gonna have like superpowers like Spider-Man, bro.
Let's hope. I'm just gonna go get bitten by something radioactive.
Have you slept since that happened?
Yeah,
really?
Fine. I feel fine. I feel great.
Better than ever.
Like within 2 hours, my legs and butt were not sore anymore, and the only lingering thing is this metal taste in my mouth.
Whoa.
Which I have no idea if that's normal, not normal. Like I literally haven't even Googled it yet. Like we've been so busy. I'm just like, I'm fine. Oh. Yeah.
That's nuts, dude.
So Florida's crazy. Yeah, all the places I go. Florida, you got the bull sharks, you got lightning storms, gators. This is a crazy place.
It's a fucked up place, man. But yeah, no, like that guy in Egypt getting eaten by the shark. Like you never, like I always thought before that. I was like, sharks don't fucking eat people. I'm like, the only time people get bit, it's by accident. They're trying to figure out what it is. They're hungry. I mean, there's more shark bites in New Smyrna Beach, Florida than like anywhere in the world, but they're little sharks. They're like little black tips or like spinner sharks.
Right.
And they're not trying to eat humans.
They're not eating people.
Biting whatever they see. But like when you see a shark devouring somebody.
Well, tiger sharks are their own kind of special, right? And what I mean by that is a bull shark does not want to eat a person. That's a fish eater, right? That's what bull sharks eat. A great white shark will make the mistake of eating a person thinking that it's a marine mammal like a seal or a sea lion or something like that. And I would guess, I could be wrong, but I guess a great white's never actually fully eaten a person. The problem is an investigative bite from a great white shark's lethal.
It's dead, yeah.
Yeah. Now, a tiger shark's its own kind of special because tiger sharks will eat people. They'll eat anything, right? Tiger sharks have been cut open. They found car tires in their stomachs, license plates. You know, they'll eat anything. They'll eat a whale carcass, a human carcass, a sea turtle, like you name it. If they find it and it's available food, they're going to eat it. And that's why they have like this nickname, the dumpster of the sea, right? Because they'll just, if they can fit it in their mouths and can catch it, they're going to eat it. And that's the problem. Like, when it comes to a tiger shark versus almost any other species, if they take a bite, they're like, oh yeah, this is edible.
and then they're going to keep trying to eat it, which he clearly does in that video with that poor guy.
Plus, I think that shark was pregnant. It was a pregnant
she?
It was a pregnant female.
They killed her a few days later, right? Didn't I read that?
I think the same day they caught her and killed her, and they cut her open. They found his remains in there. But if it's a pregnant female, I guess from what I heard is they can't swim as fast.
Yeah.
So they can't catch fish. So whatever they find that's slow, they're just going to fucking eat it.
Yeah, I mean, tiger sharks more often than not are eating sea turtles, and they're slow moving, floating on the surface, come up. Anyone can catch a sea turtle. You can jump in the ocean, catch a sea turtle,
Right.
And it makes sense. It's just, it's all the factors as well, right? Like being pregnant means you want larger meals because you're eating for multiple, just the same as when your wife's pregnant. It's the same thing, right? She's eating giant chicken sandwiches or whatever. You're like, I've never seen you eat that before. It's the same thing,
Yeah.
So it all sort of adds up, but it is a gruesome video.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Manny was telling me that the shark populations here are like exploding, like to an unhealthy level.
I've heard that. I don't think that's scientifically validated.
Really?
Yeah, because there's a whole thing. Florida is such an interesting place, but there's a huge war between like the ecotourism, shark diver, scientific sort of, like more conservation-minded side, and then like the consumptive hunting side. Like those two groups are at odds. Doesn't matter if it's about fish, sharks, hunting invasive ducks or iguanas. They're just at odds with each other. I'm very neutral. I think being a sportsman I love spearfishing and diving and shooting fish. I also know, the scientific side of things and believing in the conservation of things. Globally, shark populations are down 80%.
Really?
Yeah. 80% of the world's sharks are gone.
Whoa.
Yeah, and that's not like this year. That's in totality. But like shark populations are hammered globally, right? Compared to where sharks were, I think maybe 10 or 15 years ago, I think they've bounced back. I'm talking about Florida specifically now. I think they've bounced back. Now, are they out of control and eating all the fish and blah, blah, blah? Absolutely not. Florida has such an incredibly abundant, healthy fishery. It can support that many sharks. You're never, ever going to have an ecosystem that has so many sharks and no fish to eat, right? Like, that's clownish. Like, we have this thing called the predator-prey cycle, which when you have a ton of prey, then all of a sudden the predator population bounces up, predator population gets over control, like overpopulated, hammers the prey concentration, right? And it goes in these cycles. It's just very natural. If you can imagine predators going like this and prey doing the opposite, right? That's a predator-prey cycle. You're never going to end up with, for any long period of time, too many sharks and no fish in the ocean, because it just doesn't make sense. You can't support that population of sharks if there's not enough food for them. And I know there's arguments about, oh, well, the sharks are getting fed by fishermen, blah, blah. It's nonsense, because without enough prey, you cannot have that many predators, okay?
Right.
Now, what people are actually seeing that is problematic, undeniably, is habituation of sharks. Sharks are not dumb animals. They're smart animals. They've been on this planet longer than trees, okay? They're millions of years old. What's happening is the sharks all over Florida are going, hey, that boat means the dinner bell. That spear gun pop means the dinner bell. Like, that's happening. So sharks are now conditioned to be around people. People are cutting fish. They're throwing it off the boat. They're chumming. They're baiting. They're shooting fish. And so people think, oh, sharks are overpopulated. They're not overpopulated. There might be slightly more now than there were 10 years ago, and that might fall in the next few years. But what's more realistically happening is the sharks that are here are going, hey, there's people here, and people mean food, so let's be by the people, And so we feel like there's way overpopulated sharks, because every time you take your boat out to a popular dive site, 15 sharks show up. And you're like, there's way too many sharks in Florida. Every time I dive here, I see 15, 30 sharks. Right, because for the last 10 years, everybody has directly or indirectly fed those sharks. So of course there's way too many sharks in this spot.
Right.
But on a whole mass of the state, and the planet, more importantly, there is not too many sharks.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you think it makes sense for the sharks to be so protected like they are right now? Or do you think it should be more...
I don't know the regulations. I can't speak on that, really. I don't know. I think it's species by species, right? In
Maybe
Florida?
You can find that, Stephen, like what the regulations are on shark fishing in Florida.
I think, and I stand by this with almost anything, great white sharks, things like that are maybe an exception, that are very, very top of the food chain. The higher up you get in the food chain, the slower you reproduce, the lower your population density, right? You're never going to see millions of tigers, right? Because there's not enough prey to support all the tigers. And I don't mean tiger sharks, I mean tigers, right? You're never going to see millions of great white sharks because there aren't billions of seals. Do you know what I mean? You need billions of seals to have millions of great white sharks.
Right.
And there aren't quadrillions of fish to support the billions of seals. So you're never going to have the most at the top. So anyway, that's a long-winded way of me explaining my personal take on this, which is you should never hunt stuff that's a very, very top of the food chain with any kind of intense pressure because you can collapse that keystone species. Taking sharks, I don't have a problem with it. If there is a well-conducted survey and study, and it's like, hey, we have a massively sustainable population of reef sharks. I'm just making that anecdotally. And we can do a quota of 500 reef sharks a year get taken. And that will not impact their overall population. That won't impact anything below them. Great. Like, take 500 reef sharks a year. I don't want to kill a reef shark. I don't think they taste good. I don't want to personally hurt one. I don't like it, but I have no problem with you doing it. Go for it, because the population and the ecosystem can sustain the removal of 500 sharks a year. So as long as it sort of stays in that family of not hurting the ecosystem, who cares? Go for it. The sharks will reproduce. They'll refill that niche. Now, if the difference is 500 versus 700, where if we take 700 sharks a year, then, actually over 10 years, we're going to see a population decline to the point of collapse. No. Don't take 700. Go back to the 500 number. You know what I mean? Just like it has to be studied. That's the only way you can monitor these things and apply useful regulations.
Right. The science of the fisheries kind of gets bastardized a little bit too, because especially when it comes to like the quotas for these other fish like snapper and grouper around here.
Yeah.
I did this documentary years ago about like the commercial fishing industry around here specifically. I guess like because Madeira Beach is right up the road and it's like the #1 grouper port in the world. There's like more grouper caught in the Gulf of Mexico brought in through that pass, like 2 miles down the road than anywhere.
Mostly black grouper or everything? Gags,
black grouper, reds, a lot of reds, all kinds of grouper.
Wow.
But like the quotas was set up. I forget. I'm sort of like fuzzy on the dates. But I remember like when they first enacted like that federal quota system, all the quota was given to these people originally. So like all these fishermen or boat owners back in the day, they were assigned to this quota. Now what happens is those guys who own those quota, they basically lease it out to other fishermen.
Yeah.
So they're just like capitalized, like it's like a monopoly system. What is this? Harvestable sharks, bag limit, 1 shark per person per day.
I mean, so to me, that seems reasonable. And I don't know, like they've got a list of species. Dogfish are one of the most widely distributed sharks on the planet. They're in every ocean in the world, I think, except Antarctica, right? I don't know about some of these other. Bonnethead's a type of hammerhead. 2 sharks, minimum size, blah, blah. Oceanic white tip, that shouldn't be there, right? Like oceanic white tips are hammered. Their population's fucked.
Is it really?
It is. They're really rough. I don't know. There used to be a lot of oceanic white. I do know. I don't know why I said I didn't know. It's because of the shark fin trade. So they're a scavenger shark in blue water.
Right.
And longliners throw out, lines of bait and hooks, and they're like very, very quick to hit the long line. And so that species in particular has been really, really hammered. I think, you'd have to check my reading on that.
That's like being that, like a pelagic fish way out there in the open ocean is like living in the desert for a shark.
100%. And then when you see a bite of food, you have to take it. Because who knows when your next meal's coming.
That's why the shipwrecks, all the people get devoured by those sharks.
Exactly. But, to me, as long as this is well studied, and it goes back to what you were just saying about the quota limits, you can't set a quota and maintain it. That's not really science, right? Science is like an ever-evolving understanding of things. So if you're just like, bag limit's 1 shark per person, and then we run that for 10 years and go, hey, there's way more sharks now than there were 10 years ago for whatever other factors, make the bag limit 2 sharks per person.
Right.
But if you go bag limit's 1 shark per person, and after 10 years you're like, hey, there's not a lot of sharks left. Like, okay, we shouldn't be killing sharks, right? So as long as Florida Fish and Wildlife and NOAA and all these organizations are keeping up to date on their studies and research, which I can't say whether they are or they aren't, I see no problem with it. But it has to be managed. That's the thing. It just has to be managed. People should enjoy resources. We should have monetary value on animals because it protects them. It makes them safe. If there are guys that are willing to pay $100,000 to go out and shoot a bull shark or whatever, and the bull shark population's fine, and that $100,000 somehow goes back into the conservation of the species. It's the same thing as like game hunting in Africa.
Yeah,
that's great. It just has to be managed correctly. It just has to be done well. That's all.
If there's one thing I know about my listeners, it's that they appreciate innovation. That's why I want to introduce you to GhostBed, makers of some of the most cutting-edge mattresses available. Whether it's their world-exclusive massage bed, their proprietary cooling technology, or the patented materials they use, GhostBed is always finding ways to elevate the sleeping experience. And as a family-owned business with over 2 decades in the industry, they have garnered a devoted following. GhostBed offers luxury mattresses without the luxury price tag, and they're known for their incredible sales. If you go to ghostbed.com/Danny and use the code Danny at checkout, you can get an astonishing 40% off your purchase. You get a 101 night sleep trial along with free shipping and returns when you purchase your mattress, so you can try it in the comfort of your own home. And GhostBed has a dedicated team of sleep experts on standby to help you find the perfect bed. It's an unbeatable opportunity to enhance your sleep quality, so don't miss out. Visit ghostbed.com/Danny today to transform your sleep for the better. It's linked below. Now back to the show. You're from Zimbabwe, right?
That's right, yeah.
How the hell did you end up in Zimbabwe, or how did your parents end up in Zimbabwe?
Yeah, so I'm 6th generation, so my family's
really?
been there a long time, longer than California's been around. So yeah, where I live now. So my family had been in Africa for a very long time. My grandfather, my mother's side of the family, English settlers. Way back when. And then my grandmother, my father's family's American, so that's how I ended up back here, and I actually have an American passport, and my parents brought me over here to have birth here, so that I was born in America, I had a passport, yeah, which was clever. Went back when I was a few months old. And, I have a lot of American ties, but I grew up in Zimbabwe, in the bush, on a farm, safari all the time, very prim and proper school, ties and uniforms and prefects, and yeah, very different childhood to your average American.
Did you go to the school that had the UFO encounter or the alien encounter?
I'm familiar with it, but no, I didn't. My mom also didn't go to the school, but she remembers it vividly. Not the alien encounter, but when it all happened.
That was like 94, I think.
Yeah, we were, was it 94? I don't remember, but yeah.
It was early 90s.
Yeah, well, I mean.
Maybe 97, I don't know.
I don't know either. I mean, I was there, I was in Zimbabwe in school, but I was little and don't really remember it that well.
Right.
Whereas it was very well talked about.
Yeah, aerial school. What year was it? 94.
94, okay. Yeah. So my mom was like, we were all living there, and I've talked to my mother about it, and she's like, yeah, I remember it. Like, it's, she's not a believer in like aliens or anything like that, but she's like, yeah, everybody says the same thing, saw the same thing. It's pretty spine tingling. Like, yeah, there's something there.
That's the first thing I thought of, because I was looking up your age. Like, me and you were about the same age. Yeah. Like, we would have been in school, like in that kind of school in 94. I was like, what if he was at that aerial school?
I wish I
this
had
dude's
that.
Seen everything.
Dude, I wish. Well, I have been struck by lightning, so.
And you've been struck by lightning.
No, I wish. That was amazing. I mean, with all the new stuff coming out on aliens and UFOs and all that, it's like, I don't know. It's like, to me, it's like this Rolodex of things is being checked. Like, we're getting closer and closer to just being like, yeah, here they are.
Right. Yeah, they're slowly letting the news out, so we don't lose our minds when they actually admit there's aliens.
It does seem that way, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or it's like all a smoke and mirrors show.
Right. That's a good chance
to pull our attention off of the economic crisis and everything else.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly. Or war or whatever it might be.
Or whatever. Yeah.
So, like, how did you, when you were a kid growing up in Zimbabwe, like, how old were you when you were you just running around with wild lions and stuff and tigers when you were like a toddler?
I mean, more or less, it's like asking a Florida boy if he was running around in the swamps with gators. Like, you can be if you want to be, right? Just like if kids in Florida and they want to go play in the swamp, you can be, or you can go to the mall, right? And so it's the same. Right. Nobody goes to the mall anymore. But it's like the same sort of idea. So my family ran safari businesses. So when I wasn't in school, I was in the bush, I was barefoot, I was running around with wildlife. The difference being here, like, you run around in your backyard and maybe you see a raccoon. There, like, it can be a cobra, it can be a leopard, it can be a hyena, anything can happen. So I spent a lot of time in the bush, but I think it was because I grew up with that one-track mind. I was always singularly focused on wildlife. My sister grew up the same way, and she works in fashion,
Oh, wow.
So, like, it's just choices, and things that it's not all nature versus nurture, Like, I was just completely enamored with animals from a very young age, and still am today.
So how did that, when you went to California, you must have been bummed.
Dude, well, it was rough. So we got kicked out of Zimbabwe during the land reform era. So we had, So we had war veterans. There wasn't real war veterans, but we won't go into the minutia of it. But we had, there was a land reform era in the late 90s, early 2000s in Zimbabwe where people could come and take your land with guns. And so we had all of our neighbors killed, murdered, tortured.
What?
A lot of our staff went through pungwis, which is indoctrination through torture, to be converted into the ZANU-PF political party. Like, it's crazy. We got shot at a lot. I was in a couple gunfights as a 14-year-old. Like, things were crazy. And one day, to make a long story short, the war veterans had taken all the farms around us because they were all bigger than ours. We had lived in the smallest farm in the area. And our farm was the last to go. They were on all sides of the fence, basically, and they came in, and my dad was out of the picture, so it was me as a 14-year-old boy who was, like, sort of running the household, at least aesthetically, because in Zimbabwean culture and Shona culture, women can't run things, men have to, and even a 14-year-old boy had more say than my mother, who actually ran things. Do you know what I mean? So it was all translated through me. So it was just me, my mother, and my little sister living on this farm in rural Africa. And you know, our staff and everything, farm workers and things. And anyway, one day we'd lost all the neighbors, all the land was gone, all the land reform had ended. They came and knocked on our door. They had guns. And I think because it was a single mother with 2 kids, instead of just killing us on the spot, they were like, you have 24 hours to leave or we're taking it. And I was 14, so I ran upstairs. I got my .22 rifle. I got my knife and put it on my belt, and I ran downstairs. I was like, let's fucking go. And my mom slapped me across the face, and she's like, pack your things and get in the car. And so we left. We fled Zimbabwe and came to America with a couple $100.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So were those terror groups that were in North Africa?
No, so we live in Southern Africa. Zimbabwe's in Southern Africa.
It's in Southern Africa.
It is terror groups. You can call it whatever you like. If you look it up, it's called
Boko Haram?
No, that's a whole different thing. Okay. So this is the Robert Mugabe regime, and who's dead now, but he was a dictator for life, self-declared. And he was the president of Zimbabwe, and his political party, which was the ZANU-PF party, their way of retaining power was to blame all of the white farmers for taking all of the money from all of the native black people. But like I said, we'd been there 6 generations. We felt as native as we could be. Right. And it was really like a methodology to get angry, poor street kids aggressive to think that they could be rich if they took things for themselves. And it was very, very genius because it ended up in a lot of deaths. And it's the same thing that's happening in South Africa right now. And it was called land reform. And so, so we lost everything, fled to America, went from living on a 200-acre farm with a giant lake and 200-plus employees and a a big safari business and airplanes and everything, to a Zimbabwe currency was basically blacklisted on the world's trades embargo at that time. So we had no money at all. So we came to America with $200, 3 suitcases of clothes, and went into welfare. So pretty quick flip-flop in Oakland, California, which was a rough neighborhood back then. It wasn't all gentrified and like upscale like it is today. I'll tell you that.
At all. Yeah, I think I have a $100 trillion Zimbabwe bill somewhere in my house.
Yeah. I remember like right around when we left, if you wanted to buy a loaf of bread, you would take 2 like plastic grocery bags of cash into the store to buy a loaf of bread, and it would take them 5 to 10 minutes to count out the cash for a loaf of bread. It was valueless. The currency was not worth the paper that it was printed on.
God, dude, that is so wild.
Yeah. It was a crazy place. It was crazy. And it's funny because the childhood I had, I don't want to paint a bad picture of Zimbabwe, because the childhood I had was idyllic. Like, never locked a door, ran around barefoot. All of my best friends were native kids, like Shona kids that lived on the farm. I'd sleep in their mud huts. They'd come sleep in the house where we lived. You know, we'd run around like best friends, run around just having so much fun, catching jackals and snakes and fishing in the dam. Just the most idyllic, like, country childhood you could ever imagine. And then things just not even that slowly, they rapidly got worse. But as Zimbabweans, like, very different culture, the culture there is like dig your heels in and fight for what's yours, because they've been through multiple wars and everything else. And so that was what we did. We're like, things will be fine, we'll get out of this in the long run, things will switch. And it didn't. There's basically no farms left, you know, so it just, the country completely collapsed.
What's it like right now?
It's still, in my opinion, the most beautiful place in the world. There's nowhere like Monopool, Zimbabwe for a safari on planet Earth. I mean, it's just stunning. Victoria Falls, one of the greatest natural wonders in the world. but it's in economic disarray. There's no real money still. It's like old bullshit. Like I have a friend from Zimbabwe. His name's Stu. And I was like, oh man, like, how's it going, bro? Like, how are things at home now? And he's like, oh no, it's not so bad now. I was like, well, how does it work? He's like, oh yeah, so all you have to do is you buy an Apple gift card and you load that gift card with money and then you pay people on Apple iTunes in order to buy things. It's like, well, what about the banks? He's like, oh, there's no banks anymore. You know, it's just like, there are banks, but they don't hold money. They're not reliable. Like, you can't get withdrawals. There's no electricity. Like, the water's now tainted. Like, Zimbabwe went from this crown jewel of Africa. Like, keep in mind, it was 1-to-1 with the British pound at one point, meaning it was richer than the United States, to the poorest country in the world in 10 years.
God damn.
Yeah.
I know poaching's a big issue over there.
Everywhere in Africa.
Everywhere in Africa, yeah. I had this dude, Ryan Tate, on here who works for this organization called VetPaw, where I guess it's like they have these war veterans that go over there, and they like volunteer to like help fight the poachers out there.
I love that.
And they do shit. They literally like go out at night, like clandestine, and rip people out of their bedrooms while they're sleeping.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know this, and it's funny because it's relatively widely talked about, but maybe your listeners have already heard this before. But it is an active, unregulated war that is taking place in certain parts of Southern Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa. In Zimbabwe specifically, like we're I don't know if I should name the place or not, but there's a huge reserve in the southern part of Zimbabwe, huge, and they have their own trained military militia that are anti-poaching, and at the same time, and they fund that through running hunting camps on this property, which is one of the reasons I'm like supportive of hunting when it's done right? They fund this by selling big game hunts on this huge property. Yeah, that's how they fund this military militia. There's no rhino hunting, of course. You know, you can't come in, doesn't matter how much money you have, and shoot a rhino, because they don't believe in that. You can shoot almost anything else.
Can you shoot elephants?
I'm not sure if they allow elephant or not, but yeah, I mean, for the most part, there's a lot of parks in Africa where elephants are overpopulated. You know,
really?
So you can go. I'm not condoning elephant hunting.
Right.
I personally don't understand it. I could never shoot an elephant. Like,
it's so weird.
Look into those eyes. They're so peaceful. They're not scared of you either. You just walk up to it and shoot it, you know?
I think about it all the time when I see the pictures of those guys posing next to dead elephants. I'm like, what do you... Maybe I just didn't get that gene.
Same.
You know what I mean? I don't see what you get from that.
I want to finish the thing about poaching and the war, but 2 years ago, we moved 24 rogue elephants in Mozambique that were killing people, and we moved them from an unregulated area into a national park. And to make a long story short, I darted this one from this helicopter, landed, ran over to it, pulled its trunk out, because they can't breathe when they breathe through their trunks exclusively. So if they land on their trunk, they asphyxiate. Pulled his trunk out, and I'm sitting there feeling this breath of this huge bull elephant, like a 75-pounder, meaning each tusk was like 75 pounds, which is a big elephant, big bull. And I put my hand on him, and I feel this warm skin. I look at this big doughy eye, and I'm not the most emotional person in the world, but I had this lump in my throat. Like, I just wanted to cry, and I don't know why. And it was just from looking at this magnificent animal. It wasn't dead. He was just sleeping, and we were saving his life. And it was the most incredible emotional experience just to touch a being that enormous and grand and majestic. I can't even imagine wanting to put a bullet through something like that's head. It's insane to me. But anyway, back to the poaching. There's these big parks, like the one I was mentioning, big privately held areas. And there are these active wars going on. You have a whole group of well-funded poachers, because a rhino horn is worth a fortune. And they're super well-funded with night vision and AR rifles, and I don't even know all the terminology, like all this crazy technology. And then you have a whole anti-poaching unit. And because it's in a place like Zimbabwe, which I've just explained, like what the law is like and everything else, it is a physical war that nobody's involved in. There's no police, there's no military, there's nothing. It's just this group that protects the animals versus this group that's trying to kill the animals. And whatever happens, happens. If you run into a poacher, you shoot him. If the poacher shoots you first, they shoot you. If 10 people die that day, nobody knows. If 1,000 people die in a gunfight that day, nobody knows. It's just, this is how things operate in this little world. And it's so crazy living in America now, where like, if I let a firework off, I'm probably gonna have a cops visit me, right? And there are full-on gunfights every week, people being murdered over rhino horn and poaching, and this like amazing group of people, like you just mentioned, who will risk their lives to save the animals, and this other awful group of people that are funding it to try and kill the animal. It's crazy, and people don't even know about it.
Who's funding the poachers?
The Chinese. quite frankly. And I'm not an anti-China guy or anything else, but I shouldn't say the Chinese. I should say Eastern medicine. So China and Vietnam specifically have they have Eastern medicine beliefs in rhino horn, tiger whiskers, vaquita swim bladders, like all these or not vaquita, it's the big fish, tortuava swim bladders, all these stupid things that are all nothing. Like rhino horn's the same thing as our fingernails, it's keratin.
Right.
It's nothing. It's valueless. But they have all these Eastern medicinal practices, specifically in China and Vietnam. And I do think that the image is changing. We can talk about that. But they want it for those things. And because it's so valuable, like one rhino horn like this is worth a couple $100,000, right?
What?
Oh, yeah. It's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. To a Zimbabwean Shona guy who's lived in a mud hut his whole life, who maybe when the economy was good 25 years ago would make $100 per month US, one horn that big changes your entire life. And so that's one thing that is always gotten wrong. It's not necessarily the guy shooting the animal that's the bad guy. It's the people funding them. That guy's just trying to make a living. He's trying to feed his family. I'm not saying he's a good person because he knows what he's doing. But at the same time, there's some guy behind the scenes from China or Vietnam that runs this totally mafioso thing that's feeding them all these guns, training, money, promises. It's just like, high-level drug dealing over here.
That's the thing, man. If you're poor and your kids are starving, are you willing to kill a rhino?
Of course.
Right.
Of course. I would do anything. It's funny because five years ago, I have two kids now. 5 years ago, before either of my boys were born, I would have been like, no, like my children could starve to death.
Same.
Like I don't care. I would never kill a rhino. That's my feeling. Now, if my son was literally starving to death and a rhino was the only thing on the table, there's nothing I wouldn't do to protect my son. Nothing. And I get that. And that's what these people are going through. And that's why I say they're victimized, because they're hammered by this well-funded group promising them a life of riches and retirement if they just do this one thing. It's just this one thing. Just go out there, get one rhino. That's what they're saying, right? Take our guns, take this, take that, go out there. You know where the rhino live. You've grown up in the bush. You live beside the game park. Get one rhino and your life is changed forever. And that's the promise they're selling them on, right? Your kids will never be starving again. You'll have medicine. You'll have running water and electricity.
Right.
They're and that's why it's really not the people, the actual poachers that are the bad guys.
Right.
And people realize this. This is well recognized in the poaching world. And people are going after the mafioso guys. And there was this big, I think he was Vietnamese, kingpin that was caught in South Africa about 2 years ago. And I think catching him alone eliminated 400 poachers.
Wow.
Because he was the kingpin, right? He was funding everything and sending it out. It was all going through him. He was the exporter to China. And they caught him after this amazing sting operation and executed him. And that wiped out 400 poachers like that. It's amazing.
That is incredible. Don't they also use those horns for creating little trinkets and statues, those little mini statuettes that they carve, the little Chinese?
I don't really know. I mean, they definitely do that with ivory, like elephant ivory.
That's what I'm thinking of. Yeah, ivory.
But I think the thing now is, so China's obviously had a massive economic boom, Vietnam as well, right? And so now they have a huge economic middle class. And the economic middle class wants to have all these luxuries that the super rich have. Just like us. I want a Ferrari. You don't want a Ferrari? We both want Ferraris, right? Who doesn't want a Ferrari? But the only people who can afford Ferraris are truly, truly rich people, right? And so when you have this larger economic middle class, they're all striving for these luxuries that the super wealthy had. And Chinese and Vietnamese and other Southeast and other Asian cultures are like, oh, well, that luxury for us is rhino horn dick pills. It's ivory on the wall. It's whatever, right? And so that's the problem, is this economic boom has created enough money for a larger population to be able to afford these luxuries.
Right. That's insane, bro.
It's insane.
I got to take a leak real quick.
No, you're good. Good dude, Paul. Genuinely.
Paul, dude, he's the man.
Such a great guy.
I couldn't believe he had never been on a podcast before. Well, he met my buddy Julian actually through Ryan Tate, the guy from Africa.
Okay.
So Julian had Ryan on his podcast, and Paul just came along with him.
Oh,
and
no
then
kidding.
Started talking to Paul like off camera after the podcast, like, yeah, what's your deal? He's like, oh, I live in the Amazon.
I live with a tribe in the Amazon, catch anacondas all day.
Yeah,
and
then
walk on floating forests. Like, no, nothing new.
So yeah, he was telling him the story of how like he kind of got screwed by. I don't remember. I don't want to get it wrong, but it was either like Nat Geo or Discovery. They produced a show with
Discovery.
him. Was it Discovery?
The snake show.
The snake show.
Yeah.
Where they tried to set him up getting eaten by an anaconda.
Eat Me Alive or Eaten Alive or something like that. Yeah, dude, that was such a crock.
And then they put him on. They had to like stage the whole thing. They fucking went to some farm in Texas, I think it was, where some guy owned an anaconda, and they had to like produce the whole thing. The thing wasn't even hungry.
Did he tell all this?
Oh yeah, he told everything.
No kidding. I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's
That's
like,
crazy.
The snake wasn't even hungry. Like they had to fake produce it to make it look real. Then the thing actually did squeeze him, and then they had to pull him out, and then they put him on Good Morning America to try to promote the show. And he's like, this is fucking fake. Like, why am I gonna do this? This is so bad. And they're like, if you don't fucking do it, you're not getting paid or something like that.
And it sucks too because like I've been in the TV game for quite a long time now, so I know where and when to say no. And I don't know if this was Discovery. It was more likely the production company that was making it for Discovery, but I don't really know. But I work with Discovery. They're a great business partner to me. But, I know when to say no immediately. Like I've been approached by, not them, but production companies being like, hey, don't you want to do this dating show where a guy gets like rides a bear in? And I'm like, nope, not doing that, But when you're early on in your career, and you're probably in Paul's mentality where he's like, oh, this is my big break. Like, I just have to do this thing. And then I can communicate all this wildlife science. I can talk about giant snakes. I can teach people that they're not actually mindless killing machines. I'll do what they say because they have my best interests in mind. You just say yes. You go on the show. You let the snake try and eat you. And it's so sad because I think he's remembered for that stunt.
Yeah.
And he's such a good guy. He so genuinely cares about wildlife and animals and giant snakes. And indigenous peoples and everything, and he's been labeled, like, especially in the herpetological community, as like, oh, what a jerk! Like, how could he do this stunty thing? And it's so not his fault. It's really unfortunate.
Not at all. He got taken advantage of, man.
He did,
and he was young, and it was his first.
Yeah,
time
I think he was like 24 or something, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was super young, and he really got bullied into that. Which
he did.
Is such bullshit.
Yeah, it sucks.
But he is something else. When he was describing to me how the Amazon basically, like, how when you go down there and you're down there for a certain amount of time, how all these suppressed sort of alarms and sensors that are in our bodies, they all of a sudden come to the surface and wake up.
Yeah.
Like when you're walking through the forest, all of a sudden, like, there's this something inside you that turns on that's like suppressed because of our technology, and we live in this world where there's no threats. There's no existential threats. You drive to Publix to go shopping, and when you're out there, there's nothing but the birds and the fucking river and fucking jaguars.
Yeah.
It like
he's spot on.
It flips a switch that's buried in us.
You go back to what humans are supposed to be or evolutionarily became, which is alive, alert, observant, primal beings, hunters, gatherers. Whether you hunt or not, whether you're like, Paul and live in the Amazon, you become aware of your surroundings. So there's a bird there, there's a beetle there, there's a snake there, there's something moving in the bushes. When you're walking around with AirPods in playing Pokemon Go, like, forget about it.
Staring at your iPhone all day.
Dude, are you kidding me? I've almost been hit by a car staring at my iPhone crossing the street, but I know enough to, similarly to Paul and not nearly to the extent he is, completely unplug for weeks and months at a time when I go on expeditions. And it's just like every part of you feels better. You feel more awake, more alive, more alert, more observant. Your senses become heightened. You can smell more and taste more. You feel more. You feel the ground under your feet differently. It's crazy how much you wake up. And then we go back into this digital sedative that is our everyday life.
Right.
It's crazy. I mean, I don't want to say the same things he did, but I know what he experiences, and I respect it so much, and I wish more people would try it.
Yeah, he said that when he first got down there, he was like wearing these big boots, and the natives were looking at his boots like, what the fuck are those? Like, take those off. He's like, what?
Yeah, for sure, because they're these big, heavy swamp things. In the Amazon, it's super wet. Those things get wet. They stay wet forever. It's like, put on some sandals like everybody else and get in the jungle.
And the fact that he doesn't carry a gun with him is just crazy.
Yeah, I mean that's the way it is down there, you know.
You've been down there before, haven't you?
A lot of times, yeah. Not to his place. We've talked about it a lot. I need to go visit him. But yeah, I've been to Ecuadorian, Peruvian, Colombian Amazon, Brazilian Amazon as well. Yeah.
Were you filming shows down there? Or what were you specifically doing down there?
Yeah, I mean, filming our shows are expeditions typically.
Oh, expeditions.
You know,
okay.
so it's the same. It's one and the same for us. Like we have a very tight knit crew, 6 guys. We go on anywhere from a 10-day to month-long expedition to film a show, and you know that's why our shows are what they are and are as popular as they have been, because there's no faking it in a backyard in Texas. Like we just take a camera crew, and instead of saving a bunch of money by faking it, we just go for a month and just say fuck it, you know. And we've had some epic trips down there.
Did you guys ever run into any uncontacted tribes?
Not there, no. Papua New Guinea, not uncontacted, but very, very remote. Like we went to a tribe in Papua New Guinea that hadn't, like none of the children had ever seen a white person. Like they came up, touched our skin, touched our hair, you know, stuff like that. Some of the elders had, you know, like people that they seemed elder, but they're probably like in their 50s. But you know, it's a harder life over there.
Yeah.
And they had like, you know, met white people in their life before, but the children's generation never had. You know, none of the teenagers ever had, or young adults ever had. But no, I've never had any truly like uncontacted tribe stuff. We had a pretty interesting experience in the Ecuadorian Amazon the very first time I went. This was 15 years ago now, so it's been a minute. We went with this little guy named Fausto, tiny little Ecuadorian Amazonian guy. I'm not sure what tribe. Flew into Cocos and went down this river for a few days. And it was just me and 2 buddies. It wasn't a show. It was just my first trip to the Amazon. We spent 10 days. It was our spring break in college, actually. It was our spring break, and we spent 10 days going as deep into the Ecuadorian Amazon as we could get before turning around and running out there. And on 4th or 5th day, we parked our little motor canoe, and we're just hiking the jungle looking for snakes and taking photos and, you know, just doing fun wildlife stuff. No real purpose to it, just exploring. And our guide Fausto looks at the ground, and he like sees a footprint, and he sees something else. I forget what it was. Maybe it was like a machete handle or something like that. He's like, hide. We're like, what the fuck? And like dive into the bushes, and not on the same trail we were on, but nearby, we hear guys go by, like jabbering in their native language, like, you know, like just going by. He's like, shh, you know, like hide. And we're like sitting there quietly, like hiding in this bush. There's 4 of us, me, my buddy Mike, my buddy Nick, and this guy Fausto, and we're like tucked in a ball under some like big leaves, hiding. And we sit there, and like the voices have been gone for like 30 minutes. I'm like, and he's like, shh. You know, and we wait. So we spend like 30 minutes sitting tucked in this bush. We didn't even see the people, but close enough that we heard them. And then it ends, and we're like, Fausto, why did we do that? And then he's like, oh, they're from the other tribe. And we're like, okay. And he's like, oh, they would have killed me because I'm not from their tribe if I'm here. He's like, they would have and they might have killed you guys too. So we have to hide while we're here. And I was like, Jesus Christ, dude, like, what are you talking about? And he's like, yeah, it's just the way it is in this area. Like, it's like, I don't usually come here, but if they're here and I'm here, it's bad. And I was like, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, man. I mean, Paul was explaining the stories of how those guys kill any white people they find. Like they have these crazy 10-foot arrows. They'll shoot at you and kill you.
The uncontacted tribes?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. We're scary to them. I mean, Seminole Island, is it Seminole? Is that what it's called? There's that island.
North Sentinel Island?
Sentinel Island, yeah. That has that same sort of thing. Papua New Guinea, I saw 2 different people get hacked up by machetes while we were there. Like, it's just...
You saw people get hacked up by them?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
What happened?
So 2 different times. The first one was gnarlier, so I'll probably just tell that story. But basically, we're in Port Moresby is the capital of Papua New Guinea. Mm-hmm. It's a melting pot, okay? Papua New Guinea has 800 languages spoken. The reason there's 800 languages spoken in one country is because these are tribes that don't like to intermix. They're geographically isolated, and they're like little cliques. Port Moresby, the capital, is a melting pot for all of these tribes to come together, right? It's like a Western city that was built. And because of that, you have 800-ish groups of people that all hate each other. Okay, I'm generalizing here, but they roll around in these little cliques. It's like a middle school. You know, you like have all these little cliques of people walking around. It's because he's from this tribe, and he's from that tribe, and he's from this tribe. It's all men that you see walking around the streets. And they're all carrying machetes in a capital city. And when we were there, day 3, we went to this area where they're like, you shouldn't film here, whatever. And we're like, oh, I want to meet the children. I want to talk to the fishermen. It's like, fine. And so we're filming there, and our giant Australian security guard named Clint. He's like 6'9", like shoulders out to, like looks like bigger than any NFL linebacker you've ever seen. He's just a monster. And he comes running over. He's like, get in the car, there's a problem. So we get in the bus, and he's like clearing traffic and moving us out. And we pull up to like this market area, and you just see basically two groups of people like screaming at each other. And one guy like pulls his machete out like this, and the other guy pulls his machete out like this, and they just boom, clash like this. There's a wall of people all around it, right? There's like hundreds of people, this market. And you just see like machetes flying, blah, blah, blah. And then we're stuck in traffic. It has nothing to do with us. They don't want anything to do with us. They don't want to hurt us, whatever. This is a tribal thing, clique thing in the city. All these people around, whatever. Cops come, people disperse. We're just like stuck in traffic watching this for like an hour. People disperse, and there's just bodies laying on the ground. And then it's just like, and it's just back to normal. Like the police are there, they're kind of looking, talking to each other, like writing on a notepad. People are like stepping over the bodies and going back to like buying a leaf of lettuce. It's just like, and that's their culture. It's just like, that's the way things are there.
That's so wild.
It's
bro.
crazy.
Sorry to interrupt, but this episode of the podcast is brought to you by Verso. We all know how important it is to get the right amount of nutrition, exercise, and sleep as we age. It's something I'm really passionate about and have discussed at length with doctors and nutritional scientists on this podcast. That is why I use Verso. Verso is a company dedicated into translating scientific breakthroughs into products that hold the potential to increase longevity. I take Cell Being every day to help combat aging by increasing my NAD levels with powerful ingredients such as NMN, trans-resveratrol, and TMG. NAD Plus is arguably one of the most powerful molecules in the body, but declines with age. Keeping NAD Plus levels high helps guide longevity genes called sirtuins. Sirtuins are called longevity genes because by activating them, they support overall health and slow down aging-related effects by regulating important processes inside of cells. High NAD Plus levels can improve your metabolism, repair damaged DNA, and ramp up energy production in your brain, immune system, and muscles. Now, you can't take NAD Plus as a supplement because it's too big for the cells to absorb. But NMN directly converts to NAD+, while resveratrol activates your sirtuins, which increases their attraction for NAD. These two molecules act synergistically and increase your NAD+ more than just NMN on its own. Verso also publishes third-party testing from each batch produced to absolutely guarantee you're getting what you pay for. Head on over to ver.so and use the coupon code DANNY, it's spelled DANNY, to save 15% off your entire order, or just go to ver.so/Danny. Back to the show. Another thing that shocked me that I didn't know about the Amazon was how all the trees are basically just sitting on the ground. Their roots don't go deep into the ground because
shallow.
I guess the earth that's directly underneath the topsoil is like super dense clay, like from the bottom of the Atlantic, from when the two continents split, from when Africa split from South America.
And extremely low nutrient value as well. Yeah, all the nutrients are in the very, very thin topsoil, is my understanding.
Right.
Yeah, I mean the Amazon is known as a shallow forest. Like it doesn't penetrate deep, and trees fall over. You know, you see it when you're down there. Like huge trees will just be toppled over with their root base will be 25, 30 feet over your head. Because they don't go deep, they go flat.
They just spread way out.
Yeah, and then the tree tips over, windstorm, lightning, age, whatever, and you just see these massive down trees.
And they pull down like a bunch of trees with them.
Which is a good thing for the forest because it opens up a bunch of light, gives new photosynthesis to the area, rejuvenates that area. The nutrients from that big dead tree go back into the system. All that energy is returned to the system. You know, it's not good for that tree. It's not good for the population of birds that was living in the tree. But on a whole, it's very good for the jungle.
Right. Have you heard the theory that the Amazon was man-made?
I have, and I talked about it on a podcast pretty recently. I got torn to shreds.
Really?
Yeah, I forget if it was Rogan or if it was my own podcast, something. But I read the comments, and a bunch of people put a bunch of literature in there that I ended up reading about half of it, saying that it's bullshit. At the end of the day, it's theory. Like, it seems like the Amazon has giant pieces of cultivated jungle, like and this is my newer understanding, by the way, so people can rip me to shreds again and then I can learn more, which is a very useful way to do this.
Yes.
But
the commenters always know everything.
That's great. And nobody's mean on the internet. No. My understanding is there are giant, very large sections of the jungle that are cultivated, meaning fruits and vegetables and things like that were planted in these areas because, as we're now learning, there were very large civilizations in the Amazon jungle that have, since collapsed.
Right.
Now, what I think I made the wrongful statement at some point on one of these shows going, hey, have you heard that the whole Amazon jungle is like a cultivated jungle? It's like a planted jungle. That's obviously not the case. There's areas of cultivation, area where human have inadvertently or directly planted and changed the ecosystem. But it seems like there are large swaths of the jungle that look to the naked eye just like wild jungle that are very, very cultivated many generations ago, and then other areas that are completely untouched, which is very logical if you think about it. Big civilization used to plant things nearby. Civilization collapsed. All those things stayed there. It all gets overgrown. It all looks wild. Other areas, no civilization, untouched. Logical.
Yeah, I guess one of Graham Hancock's biggest arguments for that was the Brazil nut tree. He said the Brazil nut tree was cultivated, I think was the word he used. What was the word he used? He said it was domesticated. He said there was domesticated Brazil nut trees in the area, the areas of Terra Preta. But the Brazil nut, what Paul was saying is the Brazil nut tree is not a domesticated species. The Brazil nut tree is like a native original species to the Amazon. It's not like a golden retriever was domesticated from wolves or whatever they bred it with. It's original. It's like a native plant there, or the tree.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it sounds,
Paul was going off, and he said the problem with that
with the theory
is that it's like, okay, if we made the Amazon, if it's our garden, then we can do whatever we please with it.
Well, that is the problem, and that's the same problem that I face with what I do with animals on the edge of extinction. It's funny. Similarly to Paul and that theory and his thing with the snake and everything else. When I first set out to look for animals that were deemed to be extinct, which is what I became most notable for, I was like, this will be such a good thing. If we find them, it'll save them. And the one dark shadow to that I've realized that I never anticipated is that exact mentality. Is like you find an extinct animal and then you have all these loons going, well, extinction isn't really a problem. Animals never go extinct. They're just hiding. And I've tried so many times to quell that by saying, hey, extinction is a major problem. That's why we talk about it. That's why it's on these shows. That's why the shows are about the journey and not the destination. And 99.99% of the time, you cannot combat extinction. You cannot fix extinction. Extinction means gone. It means eradicated. It doesn't mean hiding in a bush or under a tree. This is about human errors. And it's the same thing. It's people being like, oh, if it's not really extinct, scientists don't know what they're talking about. It's just hiding. It's like, no, it's just a mistake here and there. And that's the problem with any of these things. But at the end of the day, you have to do what you think is right. And you have to do what you think is going to impact the most people, whether that's talking about Brazil nuts, whether that's talking about lost species. I think the good outweighs the bad.
So like finding some of these like closely endangered species or species that are believed to be extinct, what has been done to hasn't there been shit done in science to try to use CRISPR and some of this gene editing technology to bring back some of these things like the woolly mammoth and the...
Yeah. So I work with that company, Colossal. Colossal Biosciences is the tech company that is using gene editing to bring back extinct animals. And they just had a great announcement. Yeah, here you go.
This is them?
This is them. They're awesome, dude. It's such a cool company. Ben Lamb, the CEO, has become a close personal friend, all because I reached out and researched what they were doing and believe in it. It's radical conservation. De-extinction is a radical idea. And so one big thing that they just announced, you might see it on their Instagram or maybe on I think it was posted by Nat Geo as well. There's only 2 northern white rhinos left in the world, and they are functionally extinct, meaning they're not coming back. There's no way to reproduce them. They're not there. Until Colossal stepped in and went, hey, hold my beer, right? And now Colossal is going to go and do the genomics work to save the northern white rhino. That's pretty incredible, right? To go and take samples from existing animals, build embryos, impregnate them, so on and so forth, and save a species that's down to 2 individuals. That's pretty big.
So what have they actually done? To
well,
bring back more
that's
of them?
their big thing right now. So they just announced a few days ago.
Okay.
I actually haven't been to the facility since that announcement, so I actually need to talk to them and figure out what their methodology is. I'm on their conservation advisory board, so I'm talking to them about how to manage the species because that's my background. So where are these animals going? What impacts are they going to have? How long are they going to be there for? That's kind of the work that I'm doing with them is conservation advising. What Colossal's doing with the mammoths is they're taking Indian elephant DNA, which is I think it's 99.6% related to a woolly mammoth. And they are through their various processes of gene editing, which I'm not going to try and explain or pretend to understand, turning that into a long-haired, long-tusked, cold adaptive, here's the process, woolly mammoth, and then, I mean, they have these crazy machines. It's a huge company. It's incredible what they're doing. And the reason being, and this is why it's important, is by putting mammoths back in the Arctic tundra, and here are the genes they're editing for and everything else. It's way beyond my comprehension. They do a fantastic job of communicating it. But by putting these mammoths back in the environment, it is going to slow down the melting of the permafrost and slow down the release of carbon emissions, which is a huge, huge thing. Look, and also look at that. That's
that
a
cute little
cartoon
baby
one, but
mammoth.
look at that thing.
It's adorable.
It's adorable. No, they're doing amazing things, and they're going to succeed.
So they want to put them in like Siberia and populate Siberia with the mammoths, and that will somehow slow the melting of the permafrost?
Correct. So a couple things there. So it was going to be in like Siberia and Russia, but there's too much conflict in Russia at the moment. So I think now this is not happening next week, right? This is a long, slow process to do it properly. And it's going to begin to take place in Alaska. And they are going to be putting these mammoths back. The mammoths there's basically 4 or 5 processes, but to try and sum it up as concisely as possible, the mammoths break through, when snow falls, and well, you don't because you're from Florida, but when snow...
Seen snow once.
When snow falls, you get like a nice snowpack. Like imagine an igloo, right? Mm-hmm. Eskimos made igloos to stay warm, believe it or not. So
Right.
That's because it creates an insulating layer from the ground.
Right.
Once you crush that and break it, that insulating layer goes away. That, pulling out trees, because there's too many trees in the Arctic now since mammoths went away. The Arctic used to be more like grasslands. And a few other processes lead to a substantially slower melting of the permafrost, which keeps all the carbon from dead grasses and trees that are trapped under that ice. So you have much less carbon emission offset, or not offset, but much less carbon emission release. So that offsets that, and that slows down how much CO2 is going into the atmosphere, which of course slows down the warming within the ozone. So it's pretty cool.
Okay, so basically when it was lush and when there was big trees and stuff, that would heat it up.
Correct. Yeah. And so most people don't know this, but the Arctic used to be like sub-Saharan Africa, big grasslands. It used to be freezing cold grasslands that were filled with megafauna. But as human beings came over here and settled it, these megafauna had never seen humans before. They weren't scared of them. And most of that megafauna got driven to extinction. Mm-hmm. So when all that megafauna went away, and this is like big sweeping generalizations, but you can anybody can do the reading and figure it out. When all that megafauna went away, there was nothing to eat the baby trees and the baby this and that. And so forests spread, like big groves of trees spread. And now that makes big trees, lots of sunlight. It made this like warming environment because the grasslands went away and made a forest. Now, as those forests get knocked, when you have mammoths there, the mammoths knock down those trees and then everything else can graze them and everything else. But with no mammoths, there's nothing to knock down the trees. So when you put the mammoths back, it knocks down the trees, it crushes the insulating ice and snow layer, and it does a few other things that all collectively, and this is all studied, it's all on Colossal's website, it collectively will cool down the Arctic up to 6 degrees, which is a lot of degrees.
Do you know where they found these dead mammoths remains?
All over the place, I think. I mean,
a lot in North America, right?
Oh yeah, we found yesterday when we were fossil hunting, we found a whole bunch of it.
Really?
So all of the elephant remains, all the pachyderm remains had to go to the museum. So we found 24 species yesterday here in Florida in a creek. Okay, and I grabbed you those two. I kept a couple for myself, but everything else went to the museum. And part of what we found yesterday, I found a little piece of ivory, like fossilized tusk. One of my buddies found like a skull cap from a mammoth. We found mandibles from a mammoth. We found teeth from a bunch of mammoth teeth, actually. And all the pachyderm stuff went to the museum. So we're trying to give all the stuff we found away. Right. You're allowed to keep those things. But, anything that we thought was scientifically valuable, we gave to the museum yesterday. But anyway, that doesn't really answer your question, but it's pretty amazing. Mammoths were all over the place.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because I just had a guy on here who was talking about some of like the ancient cataclysms that basically ended the Pleistocene, and he was saying how like some of the biggest megafauna on Earth were in North America, and the reason that they all died instantly was because of some sort of cosmic airburst from a comet impact.
I mean, he knows more than I do, but there's a lot of theories on why that happened, but resoundingly humans had an impact on it. And yeah, in North America during the Pleistocene had more big animals than Africa does today.
That's fucking nuts.
Giant sloths, armadillos that you would live under their shell, like because they were so big they'd make like an igloo. Huge camels, wild horses like you got there, mammoths, bears. I mean, this thing called a hell pig. You ever heard of a hell pig?
No.
Oh, that's the scariest thing you've ever seen. Crazy animals.
Scarier than a terror bird?
Oh yeah. Look up a hell pig. Like, take a look at this
God.
thing. Yeah, look at these things.
Whoa, dude.
Yeah, and they were...
what the fuck?
That's a pig. And it was a carnivorous pig, by the way. Pull up that picture, the one next to the life-size one, the modern pig, like 3 up. No, that's a cave bear. So that's a wild boar. And you know wild boar today kill people. Like, there can be problems with wild boar. That's a wild boar size comparison to a hell pig. Like, look at that.
Jesus.
Yeah, that's a scary animal.
I don't think one of those tridents is going to save you from one of those hell
No,
pigs.
sorry, Manny, but no way. No, those things are crazy. But yeah, there's incredible animals here, and you know, Colossal's not going Jurassic Park on it and just bringing back anything nuts for the fun of it. They're bringing back animals that have important conservation implications and will fix environmental damage.
That terror bird, man, that thing freaked me the fuck out.
Crazy thing.
Running into a giant 16-foot chicken that eats meat.
No, thank you. No.
God damn.
Have you seen the new Apple series, Prehistoric Planet?
No.
Dude, it's fantastic. And I think Netflix or somebody's coming out with a competitor pretty soon too, but there's this new show called Prehistoric Planet. It's like Blue Planet or Planet Earth, but all with the best CGI you've ever seen, like natural history of dinosaurs and terror birds, and it's awesome. It's really worth a watch.
Wow, that sounds amazing. Yeah, because like going back to that, how they got wiped out in North America. It's like you don't see any of these big animals in North America, but you see huge animals in Africa.
Right.
Like you guys still have lions and elephants and all that stuff. None of that's in North America.
And the resounding theory behind that is Africa is the dawn of mankind, right? Like humans crawled out, not metaphorically, crawled out of the primordial soup alongside these animals. They evolved alongside these animals in Africa. So in Africa, big animals and all animals have always had a fear of human beings, okay? Always. So when you see a lion, when you see an elephant, when you see an impala or a kudu or a giraffe, they run away from people for the most part. You know, not an elephant. They're not scared of people. But those animals co-evolved with human beings. Human beings, being as resourceful of a creature as they are, spread out around the planet. And in doing so, when they got to North America, here were all these critters that weren't at all scared of them, right? So now, if you wanted a mammoth, you walked up to a mammoth and chucked a spear in its head. Or, you know, if you wanted a wild horse, you threw a rope around its neck.
Oh, wow.
And so the reason being, the animals in North America, and the resources were so incredible in all these other places too, but the animals in all these other pockets in the world were not used to human pressure. So when they got there, humans wiped them out really quickly because it was really easy to do so. Going back to the guy who wants to feed his family a rhino, right? Like, this was survival. This wasn't a pleasant thing to do.
Right.
And so they just wiped out a lot of this megafauna. Some of it was dying out for other reasons, of course. Whereas in Africa, all those animals were always like, no, stay away from people. Like, we've known these as long as we live. So, you know, that's kind of the prevailing theory as to why that happened.
Right, right. What is the craziest, most remote place you've ever traveled to? And like stayed in for a while, like no technology?
Oh, that would be the Colombian Amazon.
The Colombian Amazon.
Yeah, so the FARC rebels controlled the Colombian Amazon until like 2 years ago, and then there was a peace agreement, which isn't very peaceful. And we flew into Bogota, and then drove 3 hours to some strip, and then hired an airplane that was a cargo carrier from World War II. And if you're asking why a cargo carrier would be charterable into the middle of a remote strip in the Amazon, you guessed it. They were running booger sugar, and got on this crazy World War II cargo plane, landed on this dirt strip in the middle of the Amazon that was controlled by FARC rebels, again, where white people hadn't been in 30 years, and jumped out of that plane, hung out with a village there and a crazy shaman who made me like snuff stuff and snort stuff, and it wasn't cocaine, by the way. It was like crazy jungle stuff, and I threw up everywhere. Had this cleansing ceremony. It was wild. then got in a canoe and went 3 days up a tributary from there, and then set up camp for 2 weeks up there in FARC rebel-controlled jungle, where literally the guy driving our canoe, we were talking to him through the translator, and I was like, what's it like now that the FARC rebels are gone? And blah, blah. He's like, oh, it's fine. Everything's pretty much the same. I was like, oh, did you have any encounters with them? He's like, oh, no, I was FARC. And I was like, oh, really? And I was like, what does that mean? He's like, oh, it means if you had come like a couple, like 3 months ago, we would have killed you, but now it's okay. We're like, cool. It's crazy. It was super wild.
Dude.
But I think that was the most remote. Like, there was absolutely zero sign of human impact of any kind. Like, just none. Not a piece of plastic, not a cut down tree, nothing, you know, just because the conflict that had happened in that area for so long had kept people out of it, you know, because of the guerrilla warfare that was taking place. And because of it, the environment was pristine and it was fantastic.
And if you get like injured or like bit by a snake or anything, you're absolutely fucked, right?
You're done. I mean, we had a medic with us, you know, and he treated some stuff. Like, I cut myself pretty badly. We had some gnarly stings from these parasitic wasps. My one buddy went into anaphylactic shock. My other buddy got stung literally up the cargo shorts. Like, you know, so we had treatment because we had our medic with us, EpiPens and stuff like that. But a bad injury, you're done. We're hundreds, you know, not well. We're hundreds of hours into this remote area, but we're days from a helicopter getting there.
Right.
You know, there's no evacuation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But did you guys have like a sat phone or anything with you?
Yeah, I think so. But it wouldn't have done
There's
any
no
good.
point in having one, right?
You could have it, and
right.
that way they can recover your dead body. But, you know, like, it would take them 3 days to get there.
Right.
Yeah.
Like you get an arrow through the belly. What are you going to do with your sat phone?
Exactly.
Hey, Mom, like, you're
Exactly.
done. There's nothing. There's no helicopters. There's no hospitals. There's no ambulance.
People seem to forget this. Like, you can call an airlift service or whatever, and they're like, where are you? And then they look at their range in a helicopter fuel tank. They're like, okay, you're 5 tanks of fuel away from where we can reach. Like, there's no way we can ever get there.
Right.
It's like, great, you know, see you in 3 days. Like,
Right.
we're way out there. Yeah.
What about the Galapagos?
Been there, done that.
That's one thing I don't know a lot about. I was hoping you could teach me a little bit about the Galapagos.
With pleasure. I mean, it's the foundation of the theory of evolution, you know, due to Charles Darwin going there and learning about the finches and their different beaks and the tortoises and their different necks. And we went there to find a really rare tortoise, which we succeeded in finding. And it's phenomenal. Another place similar to what we were just discussing, animals have no fear of humans. In evolutionary time, humans have been there for such a short period of time, and for the most part, other than the early days, not harm the animals, no fear of humans. I mean, you can walk from me to you to a rock pile of marine iguanas that just sit there. They look like little dinosaurs, like shooting salt water out their noses. Big fur seals, Galapagos fur seals, the little pups will run up to you and like put their little flippers on your feet and be like, what are you? It's amazing. Yeah, animals
How long does it take
have
to
no
get there?
fear. It's not very long to get there. You can fly
Boat or plane?
Plane.
Okay.
Yeah, you could boat. That would be brutal. People do it.
How many miles offshore is it?
I want to say 300, but I'm not sure.
Oh,
but it's out
wow.
there.
Holy fuck.
But once you get there, it's legit. Like, it's like going to Hawaii or something, right? Like,
Right.
there is some islands are completely uninhabited. Nobody goes on them, like Fernandina, where we went. And then, like, where we had our big party and stuff when we found our tortoise in Isla Santa Cruz. Great town, beautiful hotels, great food, great live music. We went karaokeing until 5 a.m.
wow.
Yeah, you know, they had a parade the next day. Like, it was wild. So it's all there, but yeah, from an evolutionary and biological standpoint, it's a pretty significant place. I mean, it has all these islands, all these animals that somehow spread out to the various islands. Yeah, so there it is. I forget how many miles offshore it is.
Oh, that's way out there. Yeah,
It's way out there.
That's got to be more than 300 miles.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I probably should know. 13 major islands. Blah blah blah.
6 smaller islands.
Yeah, and so of all these islands, of these 13 major and 6 smaller islands, each island has its own endemic species, meaning animals that exist on those islands and nowhere else. Not even
Really?
Yeah, and this is where the theory of evolution comes from, because you can literally see the next island 2 miles away, but these tortoises, which can't swim, can't cross that barrier. So on one island, I'll simplify it, on one island, there's a tortoise that always wants to eat cactus fruit that's the very highest part of the cactus. So over millions of years,
every tortoise that has a long neck breeds with another tortoise that has a long 600 miles west of the equator.
Okay.
Every tortoise that has a long neck mates with every other tortoise that has a long neck, and over evolutionary time, you have tortoises that have giraffe-like necks. Okay, but on the very next island, that's 2 miles away that you can see, where those tortoises can never meet each other, they like to eat grass. So the tortoises get shorter and shorter necks, lower and lower legs, and they get smaller and smaller. And so just in a 2 mile span, you have two animals that are very, very similar, but are completely different because they have evolved over evolutionary time for different niches to do different things, and they look completely different. So there's your long neck guy.
Holy
right there.
shit.
Yeah. And then, actually right there in that next picture on the bottom right is a short neck guy.
So they can reach the top of a cactus?
Oh, yeah. Oh, some of these guys are monsters. Hey, there's my tortoise right there, bottom right. Oh, no, it's not. Sorry, that's not her. But yeah, and it's amazing. And the same thing with the finches that Charles Darwin discovered, and these incredible animals, blue-footed boobies, those birds you see on the left. Penguins, tropical penguins, Galapagos penguins are super cool. It's an amazing place, man. It's biologically rich. And one thing they've done so well is they've protected the hell out of it. Like, they are so, and this is such a cool thing about Ecuador and I don't know if they call themselves Ecuadorians or Galapagans or whatever, but the people that live in the Galapagos, they are so proud of their islands, and they're so proud of their nature and their native resources. And it's really annoying when you're trying to film a TV show or do a wildlife show, but you cannot step foot off a trail. You cannot go pet the tortoise. You cannot pick up the lizard. Like, you can't do anything unless you have all these crazy permits and permissions from the government, which we had for our stuff there. But most people, like, if they're like, oh, that's not on your permit, don't even think about it. It's just good. Like, that's how it should be. And things are immaculate there because of it. Are
there any like crazy species of fish or sharks or whales or anything out there?
Well, you get Galapagos shark there, which are pretty neat. But they're pretty well distributed globally. They're pretty crazy. I have a video I promised him I wouldn't share. My buddy getting bitten by one yesterday. I'll show you.
By a Galapagos shark?
Yeah, but I can't show you on air. He'll kill me. He's like, please don't share this.
Really?
Like, yeah.
Why does he want anyone to see?
I don't know. He just doesn't. But I promised him I wouldn't. But yeah, he got bit by a Galapagos shark yesterday in French Polynesia, and yeah, it's there's cool stuff there. There's big whale sharks. There's major schooling hammerheads, thousands and thousands of hammerheads. It's like, it acts like a fad. You know what a fad is? It's like a fish aggregating device. So like we were saying earlier, the ocean's a desert, right? The big blue ocean's a desert. Then all of a sudden you have this little group of islands 600 miles from the nearest landmass. So everything in that desert, it's like an oasis, gets pulled into it, So it just, because you have these little beacons, they're incredible. There's another place that I go called Socorro Island, which is 300. That one I know is 300 miles off the coast of Cabo in Baja, Mexico.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and it's actually called the Revillagigedos Islands, but nobody can say that or pronounce it. So Socorro's the big island. It's the same thing, man. You dive in Cabo, it's pretty sick. There's some sharks around. It's pretty. The fishing's good, whatever. You go to Socorro and the Revs, and it's like, dude, you're scuba diving in 70 feet of water, and a 300-pound yellowfin swims by you on the reef. I can show you pictures of that all day.
Deep?
Like 70 feet deep. You don't even have to be deep. It's just so full of life. I've been there where you're standing on a boat and you're looking out and you're like, what are those like things in the ocean? Like, what are those shadows? Is there something like in the sky? And you're like, no, it's wahoo. There's like 700 wahoo, like 50 to 100 pounds, just like as far as you can see on the dead still ocean.
Oh my
Huge mantas like coming up and hugging you, giant Cubera snappers. It's crazy. And it's you're not allowed to fish it, which is a good thing.
You're not allowed to.
But it's just like, as a spearfisherman, I'm frothing. I'm sitting there
looking
at these yellowfins swimming right by me, and I'm like, oh my God, it's crazy. And it's the same thing. It's because it's so remote, acts as an aggregation area. It's amazing.
Wow, dude. That is nuts. Is there anywhere else like the Galapagos or like those islands off of Mexico? Like, because there you're kind of in tropical water, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, is there any place like that in cold water, like in California or anywhere in like cold climates where you see like these crazy wild fucking fish?
I think something that's pretty similar in a subtropical, like a much colder environment is like the Guadalupe Islands off of Mexico, where all the big white sharks are.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So you get a lot of like water mixing there. So you get cold water currents, warm water currents, huge white sharks, a ton of fish. And it's a weird place because if you're not from California, it's kind of hard to picture this, but you can be swimming in a kelp forest
which is what we have in California, and then see like tropical butterfly fish swim through. And you're like, how are these like tropical reef fish swimming through this cold, like green, like Northern California feeling water? And it's got all this mixing. There's others, like some of the Eastern Pacific in particular has the highest species diversity of fish, I think, in the world. So you get these little beacons of islands up in Alaska, out in the Atlantic, another place. What's that place that they get all those huge? It belongs to Portugal. I'm blanking on the name now. There's Portuguese islands way, way offshore. I'm blanking on the name of it now. I don't know why, but I think that's like one of those places in the Atlantic that's incredible. Like there are these little isolated pockets that are just on another level for fish.
Have you ever swam with orcas?
Just recently. Yeah.
Really?
Just recently. I think it was about 6 months ago now.
Where?
In Baja, Mexico. In the Bahia de Los Angeles. I was with, actually, if you want to see it, it's pretty cool. I might have it on mine, but it's definitely on Mike Nulty's Instagram, Nutty Nulty. And he's a good buddy. He's a big whale photographer. And he calls me up. We have this little house down there in this dirt spot in the middle of nowhere, Baja, tiny little town. And he calls me. He's like, dude, there's orcas in the bay. I'm like, how do you know? I think he's the only white guy that lives in this town. I mean, it's a tiny little place. And he's like, dude, there's orcas in the bay. There's orcas in the bay. I'm like, all right, Mike, what do we do? He's like, get the boat ready. So I'm like, getting the boat ready, launching as fast as possible. Mike comes like tearing in down this dirt road, like throws his stuff in, and we cruise out to this area where his fishing buddy calls him and says he's seen orcas. And these are transient orcas, which means they're the tough guys. Like they're the ones that are eating seals and sea lions and mammals and stuff, not stingrays and fish. Like these are the scary ones, the true sea wolves. So you seem confused. I can explain this.
Yeah, I've heard this, but I never understood how there's two types of orcas that have two different diets.
Many types, actually. There's fish orcas, there's shark-eating orcas, there's stingray specialists, there's mammal specialists.
But there's not orcas that try all the palates.
I mean, maybe, but it's not their like common thing, and it hasn't been observed. And they all speak different languages, and they can all communicate, but they can't talk to each other. It's as if you're speaking Spanish and I'm speaking English. Like two groups of orcas, they might bump into each other, but they don't hang out for long. They speak different languages. They have different dialects. The way they mate is different. The way they travel is different. Some will hang out in one area by the beach. Others will be transient, like the ones I swam with, which means they're just constantly moving, like searching and hunting new areas. Crazy. There's a book called Listening to Whales by Alexander Mortensen that explains it all way better than I ever will. Yeah, dude, it's worth a read or worth chatting with her. She's a fascinating woman. Okay. I've never met her. I love her book. Yeah, it's really, really interesting orca behavior. But anyway, yeah, so my buddy Mike calls me. We run out there. We're cruising. We spend like half an hour on the water. We don't see anything. It's like, oh man, this like we missed it. Like, what are the odds of running into him anyway? And then you look on the horizon and you just see this giant black machete cutting through the horizon, and it looks like something out of the Meg. It's just this huge, like 7-foot tall dorsal fin of this bull orca, and Mike's like, that's it, and we like fucking hit the gas or run. We don't want to harass them. We don't want to change their behavior, so we run way up in front of them, power down the boat, and I look at Mike. He's done this like once or twice before, not a lot. And I'm like, are we good? He's like, we're good. I'm like, fuck it, let's go. And we're gearing up as fast as we can. Mask on, snorkels on, jump in the water. And he's like, kick away from the boat. I'm like, are you kidding me? He's like, kick away from the boat. I'm like, fuck it. So he's just like, it's just him and I. And the boat's like drifting off in the wind slowly. And we're just out in the middle of the Sea of Cortez, and we just swim out like as fast as we can. And we get out, and you can still see the machete fin is now like getting closer and closer, like something out of the movie The Meg. And he's like, wait here, don't move. And I'm just like sitting there. I don't even have a camera. He has a camera to like block, and I'm just sitting here. And like minutes, like 4 or 5 minutes pass, and then all of a sudden you start hearing the like all their sounds and stuff. And you can't see him yet, and you look out on the horizon, you see this fin is coming closer and closer. It's so big that it's casting a shadow on the water, this fin. I mean, it's crazy. And then all around us, dude, like 8 orcas, a baby, a couple mothers, and this big bull just comes swimming through, checking us out. And that first moment when you're in the water with an orca, and you feel completely helpless. Like with a shark, we talked about acting like prey and them treating you like prey. This is a whole different experience. There is every animal I've ever interacted with, no matter if it's an elephant, a lion, a bull shark, a tiger shark, you have some sense of control. Like you can control the situation a little bit. You can stand up to an elephant. You can yell at a bear. You can charge towards a shark in the water. With an orca, it's like you're a doll. You're just sitting there in the water, and if they want to play with you, they're going to mess you up, and there's nothing you could do to slow them down. I mean, they're so precise that they can chop the liver out of a shark with their teeth and just eat the liver. I mean, they're crazy. Anyway, these things come around, they swim with us, and my heart was in my throat, not knowing what to expect, and then all of a sudden it all got like chill. They kind of just interacted with us, and we did that like three or four more times that day, and it was unreal.
They were just swimming around you?
Yeah, they come check us out. The mom didn't want to bring her baby into us for understandable reasons, and I think the bull kind of came in first, be like, what is this, and then he was like, these are just like big pink fleshy meat bags, are useless. And then the other ones would like come and check us out, and they usually like come in, see us, and dive down, and then you wouldn't see them again, and then all of a sudden they'd turn around and come back and like check you out once or twice and then move again.
What was the water visibility?
Like 30 feet.
Oh, wow.
Not good. That's
30
why.
30 feet's not terrible, though.
No, but you want to be in like 100 plus with orcas. It's, it was spooky.
Manny was saying when he was in Alaska when they were filming for Jackass that they did the same thing. He's like, drive the boat out in front of him. Drive the boat out in front of him. They're like, what?
Yeah.
Just do it. And then he just jumped off by himself and got in front of the orcas. And he said the visibility was like 6 inches.
Oh, geez. Well, then he didn't see him then, did he?
He said he saw their dorsal fins coming, and then when they were like 50 yards in front of him, they kind of sounded, and then they kind of like came up, and he didn't see he saw the eye go right past him, like
wild,
like this far away from him.
Wild, yeah. I don't want to do that in 6 inches of visibility. 30 feet was wicked enough. Like it's crazy.
So what kind of orca would be in Alaska versus what the kind of orcas that you saw that were the migrating ones?
Both. So Alaska, I believe, has the highest density of orcas in the world. It might be Washington, Canada. I don't know. But there's a ton of orcas up there. And there's, I believe, all different varieties. Like there's some that specialize in eating salmon and fish and hang out by river mouths. There's transients that hang out offshore and hunt tuna and stuff. There's ones that come in and hunt seals and sea lions. I think maybe even walrus. Like there's just a lot of them up there.
So, but why are why are the transient ones considered more dangerous?
Because they're not predictable, basically. So you can predict that the salmon-eating orcas are going to hang out by the river mouth and eat salmon. You can predict that the stingray-eating orcas are going to go smack a stingray with their tail and eat the stingray. The transients they're like a more wild, they're like a biker gang compared to these other like home dwellers, they're cruising the roads, and you don't know what they're going to do, and you don't know what their diet preference is, you don't know what they're doing, like you just don't know. But and I don't want to paint them in a scary light here, an orca has never killed a human being in the wild, ever, that we're aware of. There's no documents of an orca killing a human being in the wild. So when you think about that compared to, how many bugs have killed people, how many deer have killed people, how many little snakes have killed people, like they're really intelligent animals. Like they're making that choice to not do that.
Yeah, they only kill people when they're in captivity, right?
Correct.
They've drowned people.
Yeah, well, they're miserable. They're sitting in a pen, swimming in circles their whole lives, probably incredibly cranky and angry. It's like
you see that one in Miami just died like a week ago, 2 weeks ago.
Lolita,
yeah. She's been in there for God knows how long. What was it, like 50
40,
years?
50 years.
Insane
something
amount
insane.
of time.
Yeah, that's sad. And apparently they were gearing up for her release too. Like I think her release was like a year away. And that was going to be like the last orca in captivity for them, and they were going to put her back where they caught her.
You know Ric O'barry?
I don't know.
He's the guy who did the documentary The Cove in Japan.
Oh yeah, I know the documentary. That's for sure.
Yeah. He's like this crazy fucking like he goes all around the world, and he like sneaks into aquariums and like steals the dolphins and the whales and like releases them into the wild. He's in Indonesia right now, like
doing that,
working on that. Yeah. So he basically he steals the dolphins and shit from the aquariums in the middle of the night, and then he has his own little like place on the beach that's like kind of like fenced off or like netted off, where he kind of like rehabilitates them and then like gears them up for like to release back into the wild. But yeah.
I have mixed feelings on that. Like,
really?
Well, I don't know how he does it. I don't want to comment on him specifically, but like
he's like a vigilante.
But that's the thing, and it's like that's a form of like eco-terrorism, right? Because you're like breaking in, but it's also really cool and like very respectable when it's something like a dolphin, or a whale that's like sentient and intelligent. It's another thing if you're just like the flip side of that coin is, this is a real story. The same exact thing with PETA groups. They'd break into like the Red Lobster or the grocery store that has a bunch of lobster in the tank, and because they're do-gooders who haven't done the appropriate research, they're breaking into the grocery store, stealing a bunch of Maine lobster and dumping it in a bay in California to set it free, to let it live. And now they've just introduced an invasive species into Southern California by trying to do good. You know what I mean? Who wins in that situation? The people don't win because they're labeled as eco-terrorists. Grocery stores and shit don't win because they're getting robbed and bad PR. No, the lobster don't win because they're now an invasive problem. Like maybe 5 lobster have a better life instead of ending up in a soup pot. But now there's a whole giant problem, and this hasn't become a giant problem, but they have been caught in Southern California with Maine lobster being introduced. Like,
really?
Yeah, my buddy caught one in the Oceanside.
Crazy,
yeah,
dude.
I know.
I've never heard of people robbing grocery stores and trying to free the Maine lobster or red lobsters even. That's fucking bananas, dude.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah.
But the fucking dolphin, that's a different thing, man.
Of course.
What they do in Japan every year, I don't know if they're still doing it or not, but I imagine they still are. Like how they go out there and they basically call all the dolphin into the cove and they net it off and they fucking spear them to death. And they steal the bottlenose ones. They'll sell them off for like $250,000 to an aquarium or the highest bidder.
It's awful. It's absolutely awful.
Yeah, man.
We filmed The Grind, which is where they do the same thing with pilot whales. They don't save them for the pet trade. They just kill them. And they killed, I think it was 85 pilot whales in front of us, and I was a mess. Like I couldn't, listening to the sounds of the pilot whales screaming, being tortured. The sea literally turned red with blood, like in the Cove. It's an insane thing to see. I mean, it's barbaric. I don't get it. To me, that's the same thing as the elephant thing we were talking about earlier. It's like,
well, those guys aren't starving.
No. I was talking about the choosing to kill a big elephant.
Oh, yeah, right.
I don't get it. They're not starving. They don't need it. I don't know how any human with a conscience can be like, yeah, I'm going to go out and murder a dolphin today or murder an elephant today. I personally cannot connect with it at all.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's fucking brutal. But the orca thing is fucking crazy to me. Like the fact that you guys jumped in the water, got off the boat, and just let the boat fucking drift away while you guys were getting surrounded by orcas.
It was pretty wild. It was really cool. I'd love to do it again. Yeah. And there are places like people go to Norway and New Zealand specifically to dive with orcas in clear water and stuff. And those are specialized salmon or stingray eating orcas and stuff. This is just like wild. You know, this is like wild orcas. Don't know what they're going to do. Middle of nowhere. Jump in, see what happens. And it was, I live for those kind of moments. Like, I don't consider myself an adrenaline junkie, but the adrenaline I get out of that fuels me to do so much more of it.
Dude, there's no way to get that much adrenaline other than that. I can't imagine.
No, it's amazing.
Have you seen the stories of the orcas out in the Atlantic ripping the motors off of boats or like ripping the props off of the boats, like in groups, like orchestrated, premeditated?
And there's 2 trains of thought behind the research going into that. One is that it's malicious and these orcas are actually attacking people, which I think is becoming less and less to be considered the reality. And the other is that this is a game for them. Like it's like a cat chasing a toy, you know? It's like these orcas are teaching their offspring and everything else, hey, here's like a fun, silly thing to do to entertain ourselves. And who knows, the line could be somewhere in the middle. But yeah, there's a lot of research going into it because it's behavior that just sprung up, 3-4 months ago for the first time ever. Like it's never happened before as far as we know. And all of a sudden 2 orcas are like, hey, let's fuck with this boat.
This is a video of it? Oh yeah, it looks like it.
Yeah, look at that. Now I'll tell you what, I wouldn't get in with that orca.
No. What was that?
Piece of the boat. It's the rudder.
Oh my god, dude.
Yeah, pulled the rudder off.
Both rudders.
Look at that. And see, that looks like he's playing with it. That doesn't look like aggression to me.
Yeah, no, he doesn't look mean.
Like that's not something out of Jaws where then he's just like hammering the boat trying to rip it to shreds. It's like, oh, this is a fun thing to play with. But who knows?
So the orca population, that's not threatened, is it?
I don't think so. I'm not sure. I know at one time their numbers were dropping because of places like SeaWorld and things like that for captivity, and they were being hunted for that. And when they're being hunted for that, one thing that's often not shared is that only like 1 in 10 would survive. So they'd catch like 10 baby orcas, rip them away from their mothers, and like 1 in 10 would actually survive in the tank. So they had to catch a lot more orcas than you saw in captivity. And because these are such emotionally intelligent animals and they have so much thought and love and everything else, there was even an instance pretty recently where a mother orca lost her calf and went pretty much clinically insane and went and killed a mother, I want to say gray whale, might have been a humpback whale, and stole her baby to raise it. Because imagine a mother that lost her own, like a human mother that lost her child and went insane over it and went and stole someone else's child, which we've all read about. Those things actually happen.
Yeah.
This happened in the orca world and was documented not long ago, maybe a year ago. But that just shows their level of emotional intelligence. You know, you kill a rat's nest with all those babies. That mama rat might care, but she's back to having more rat babies 6 weeks later. You know, you kill an orca baby, it drives the mother clinically insane, and she has to, like, you know, cope with that. So it's pretty crazy,
dude. It really boggles my mind sometimes, like when I'm at like a holiday dinner with like distant relatives, and they're all like, "Hey guys, we should go to SeaWorld this weekend. Like, I got season tickets. We can go see the orcas." I'm like, "Do you live under a fucking rock?"
Yeah, dude.
I'm like, how the fuck do people not know about this shit?
It's changing though. Like things like this, having conversations like this on your show, and documentaries like The Cove. Things are changing. You know, I think that's all changing, and for the most part, for the better.
What were you doing in what's it called, Myanmar? Yeah. Where is that, and what were you doing there?
Southeast Asia, formerly Burma. We went there to do a show on the Ramri massacre. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
The Ramri massacre is the largest killing of humans by animals in a single event in history.
What?
And yeah, it's pretty crazy. What happened was the Japanese held Ramri Island in Myanmar during World War II, and they stayed there, killing all the deer, eating all the resources, and around that island was a whole ton of big saltwater crocodiles, right? And those crocodiles went dormant. They went into a state called torpor, which is where crocodiles basically shut everything off and hibernate because there's not enough food, there's nothing to do. So they just kind of shut down their metabolism and sleep.
Wow.
Okay. So now you've got an island with 1,000 Japanese soldiers on it, surrounded by sleeping crocodiles that are starving because all the food's gone from it. That's to paint the picture. One night, World War II, Allies come in, the British hit the ground, there's tons of them, and the Japanese soldiers that held Ramri Island scatter into the swamp to get away from the Allies from certain death. In that night, I think it was over the course of 2 days, 1,000 Japanese soldiers were eaten by crocodiles. So imagine running through the swamp as the Allies are shooting at you from behind, and you're just hearing these screams and cries and snaps of giant crocodile jaws as they're decimating 1,000 Japanese soldiers running through the swamp. So we went there to learn if that was like a real thing or not. You know, it's like pretty well documented, but we went there to investigate it, try and find some of those crocodiles because World War II was not that long ago, and because of the life expectancy of crocodiles, many of those crocodiles would still be alive today.
Oh, yeah.
And so we went there to catch crocs, take DNA, like learn from them, and it was pretty wild. Like it was a couple days up a river, hanging out in stilted like camp at the island. We saw a boy. Well, we didn't see him, but we were in the village when a boy came in that had just been attacked by a crocodile, ripped to shreds. Arm was broken in like 30 plus places, completely shredded. We quickly built a stretcher out of bamboo and a hammock and stopped the bleeding. He lost the arm, but the kid lived. We sent him to the hospital in our speedboat, which was like a day away. And so crazy. And then caught this giant crocodile that we called White Nose. And the reason we called him White Nose, this was Andrew Eucles again, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He caught the croc. And the reason he caught White Nose, or the reason we called him White Nose, he had a giant scar on his nose that was very, very angular, and it looked like it was from a Japanese bayonet because it was just too perfect to be like from another croc or anything. And so it was crazy like 3 weeks in the hottest, swampiest, worst jungle I've ever been in.
How many people were estimated to be killed by the crocodiles?
1,000.
1,000.
Yeah.
Did you guys
in one night?
Did you guys find any like remains or anything, or bones lodged in these people?
Dude, you won't even believe this. I've never told this story before. So we're at this area of this massacre, And we're like, how do we explain this? And we had, we were making a TV show for the History Channel, and we had like an old artifact rifle that had been found there from before. And we're like, let's put the rifle like in the remains and have the other host, not Andrew Eucles, the other guy, like pick up the rifle and talk about it, and be like, whoa, look at this rifle. So we put it in. So I've never told anybody this before, but this is how you make TV, right? So we put this rifle up against the ruin of the fort. And we're like, Brian was his name. We're like, Brian, there's a rifle here. Rummage around until you find it. And so he like walks right by it, doesn't even see it. And he steps into the mud in front of the fort. It's low tide. He sort of starts feeling around with his feet, reaches down with his hands, and pulls out a human skull, intact human skull with a like crack mark in it. And he's like, is this what you guys wanted me to find? Like, is this real? And we're like, the fuck, dude, that's real. He's like, no. Like, tell me what you want me to say or whatever. And we're like, we didn't put a human skull there. That's a real skull. And he like drops it. It's like, oh, what the fuck, And it was a real human skull that had been crunched from probably, I'm not sure if it had been shot by, an Allied soldier or crunched by a croc. But yeah, this guy literally reached into the mud and pulled out a human skull right then and there in front of us when we were sort of staging him supposed to go find a rifle.
Oh my God, bro.
Yeah.
That's crazy, dude.
Yeah, it was nuts. And when we were in Papua last year, we walked into a Papuan burial site that had like several hundred human skulls in it. Yeah, I could show you a picture of it. It's pretty wild.
Where was this at?
Papua New Guinea.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Papua's crazy, dude. Crazy place. But yeah, no. So in Myanmar, we found that skull. That was the only human remains we found. But we've seen him a few places now.
Is that where that big cave is that you're talking about? The cave that is like can fit New York skyscrapers inside of it?
No, that's in Vietnam, Song Doong Cave.
So it's close to there, though.
Very close to there. There's some human skulls in a burial site in Papua New Guinea for you. Those are all crystallized from being in there for a long time.
Whoa, dude.
Pretty cool, huh?
That's insane.
Yeah. We sort of stumbled on that, too.
So all these people are likely to have been killed by or eaten by animals?
No, this was like a burial site for the village.
Oh, okay, they
so,
put them down there.
I mean, you could see some of them have been bashed in. Like, that's blunt force trauma.
Right,
But the majority of them, I think, had died of other causes, which in the jungle, a lot of that's by animals. Snake bite, malaria, tribal warfare, or just random disease. And then in that part of the world, their tradition, instead of burying it, is to put them in a cave. So this was like a burial cave where all the skulls were. Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, what's the deal with that big cave in Vietnam?
Song Doong Cave was it was only discovered in the 90s, and it's a really interesting story. The Vietnamese guy who first found it like 10 years prior, and then came out and told everybody there's this enormous cave, and then they couldn't find it for like 10 more years again. Then he finally found it. That's called the wedding cake, that one that your mouse is hovering over right there. But you can't even really see the scale. You can kind of see it on the picture to the left of that. Those are tents. In the picture to the left,
by the water?
By the water. Those are tents, and that's just the entrance to the cave. But it's a 6-mile long cave. It's got a few holes where it's collapsed, but it's 6 miles long. And in some of the caverns, you can fit the Empire State Building standing upright, and it wouldn't touch the ceiling. Like, you cannot get the scope of how big that hole is. Like, that just looks like some beautiful little rock thing. Like, that in itself is 100+ stories tall.
That's fucking wild, bro.
It's incredible. Yeah. So we spent about a week trekking through there. You rappel down and then trek through it for about a week. Multiple days. That's how you like trek in there. That's the way in.
God.
We had 50-something porters just to carry all our gear. It was a big to do.
How the fuck do you charge your camera batteries when you're out there?
We didn't. We just had to bring them all. That's
really?
Why. Yeah. Or did we bring it? No, I'm sorry. We did. On that one, we brought generators into the cave with us.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, no, it was rough. I mean, the days where you don't see sunlight are really weird. Like when you go a couple days where you go to bed and it's pitch black, you wake up and it's pitch black, you pack up and it's pitch black, you keep cruising and it's pitch black. And this is what it looks like. Like none of these are like manipulated images.
How many total days did you spend in the cave?
I think a week.
If I remember correctly. With no sunlight.
Yeah, so you have these pockets where
the ceilings
fallen in. So I think the most we went was 2 or maybe 3 days without sunlight. That's not me, is it? No, because we definitely did that. Arm wrestling's a big thing there. Those are cool.
What the fuck is that?
Those are called cave pearls. So I think I remember this correctly. Basically, a little bit of sediment will congregate in one of these pools, and then as the water trickles over that like tiered thing, it rolls it like a tumbler, and rolls it more and more and more, and the sediment congregates in this ball rolling in every direction, and you get these pearls on the ground called cave pearls. And I wanted one. I got there. I was like, whoa, these are cool. And everybody's like, don't touch those, don't touch those. First of all, you probably shouldn't, because you can't just pick up amazing rocks like that. You should leave them in place. But secondly, the reason they're like, don't touch those, is the Vietnamese guys were telling us like it's insanely bad luck to remove a cave pearl from the cave.
Really?
So I put it right back down.
It looks like some sort of like man-made art on the floor.
That's right near the exit point right there. That's towards the end of the 6 days. In fact, I'm pretty sure those are the guys we went with right there. But it's an amazing cave,
dude,
man.
Caves are the one thing that just freaked me out more than anything, because I'm so claustrophobic.
We found some interesting stuff in there, too. We found a blind fish that I don't think had ever been described, the species of fish. No eyes, evolved. All the eyes are completely gone because its species had lived in that cave for hundreds of generations, maybe thousands. And so didn't even evolve eyes. We found a snail that to this day has not been documented. Like, nobody knows what the species is. I came out with the shell and handed it to some Vietnamese scientists. They're like, we've never seen this before. All new species of snail, like a lightless snail, which is crazy. Found some interesting stuff in there.
I wonder if there's ever civilizations living down there, like human civilizations. There had to have
Good question. We didn't see any any signs of humans that we saw, but who knows? We were there thinking biologically.
How far underground did it go?
Well, like I said, far enough that a New York City skyscraper could fit in.
So that's below the level of the ground.
Correct. So our initial rappel in was 300 meters. So I think that's 1,000 feet. So we rappelled down 1,000 feet. Like, look at that picture right there. That's one of the punch-through spots. That was actually one of the forests we were looking for to try and get blood from leeches to see if this extinct animal called a sala could be in there, whole thing.
Oh, okay.
But, that's like one of the punch-throughs. It's like 1,000 feet to the ceiling there.
Whoa.
Yeah. It's big, dude.
It's an entire, for people that aren't looking at this, it's like an entire forest growing inside of this massive stone cave.
It's like, what is it, Land of the Lost?
Yes.
Yeah. It's like Land of the Lost. It's the real life version.
Oh my God. But parts of it collapsed?
Yeah, because, it's 6 miles of underground tunnel. And then along the way, when you say parts of it collapse, what I mean is basically holes have fallen through in the ceiling. So you go a day or two without light, and then in the distance, you just see a beam of light, and you think it's like a keyhole, like that. You think it's like a keyhole.
Right.
And when you get there, you realize that keyhole is like, it's like 3 miles wide, or no, it's like a mile wide. It's huge because of the size of the cave. And it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's crazy because you'll be in pitch blackness and you'll see light in the distance and you'll think, oh, I'll be there in 2 minutes. But because of the size of the cave, it takes you 4 hours to get to where that light is. It's just like, it's that big.
Dude, that happened to me one time in the Cayman Islands free diving.
Uh-oh.
Me and my buddies were just doing swim throughs of these giant caverns. And we were both he went down into this opening at 30 seconds before I did. I went like 30 seconds after him. And then I was swimming, like the bottom of it was all sand, right? And then you have like little tiny keyholes sporadically throughout of it.
Sure.
Some of them you can't fit through, some of them you can.
Sure.
And we were going through and I got to the exit where I saw him like slowly ascending through it.
Oh,
and we were wearing freediving fins, so his fins were like poking all the way down and like he was taking forever and I was like almost out of breath. Like, fuck, I can't wait. I'm gonna keep going.
Oh no.
So I kept going, trying to find another exit, and I couldn't find another fucking exit. Finally, I found like a little keyhole that I looked up and I'm like, I'm dead. My life was flashing before my eyes.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm gonna have to fucking squeeze through this whether I get shredded or not.
Right, you just have
and try to fit through it. So I'm doing it. I get my head through it. I'm like pushing myself out and it scraped my whole stomach. My back was all ripped up and I barely got myself through that thing, dude. And then it was like another 20 feet to the surface. And that was like the most terrifying thing I've ever been through, like closest to death I've ever been. And ever since then, I don't fuck with caves.
You're lucky, man, because you could have got to your hips, and that's it. Like,
right.
like stuck there or whatever. But That's rough.
Yeah, man.
That's scary. And I know that feeling of looking up at the surface of the water or the light or whatever and being like, it's right there and I'm sort of stuck here. And there's, it's like takes forever to get there.
And it's so deceiving too when you're in those caves and you see like a giant beam of light shaft coming through and you're like, oh yeah, I can get through there, no problem. But you have no idea how big it is. And then you forget how deep you are too.
Right. Oh yeah. No, that's terrifying. And it's worse because you're stuck underwater, and I can't think of any worse way than to just like in a big thing of water.
Yeah.
So bad. Yeah.
What other sort of like crazy species have you found that haven't been discovered?
Got quite a pretty good list now. I mean, we described a new species of blind worm recently, or blind snake. Sorry, not blind worm. Do you know what a blind snake is?
No.
It's like, imagine an earthworm that's actually a snake, like this tiny little thread-like, it looks like a worm, but when you look really closely, you can actually see like the head, the eyes, the mouth, everything. And they're called blind snakes. So we recently described a new species of those down in Peru. I actually just threw that up on my Instagram a couple days ago. It's pretty cool. You see the actual little snake in my hand.
Oh, is it the one with like a little red tip on it?
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay,
that guy. Yeah, this is a different species, of course, as an Australian species. But we just discovered a new species of that. Found some species of fish that have not been described. That snail I mentioned.
Oh, it's got scales on it.
Yeah, it's a full-on snake.
Micro scales.
Yeah.
Dude, that's nuts.
And then found a lot of stuff that has been lost for a long time, like that big tortoise we found in the Galapagos. We found a caiman. Mm-hmm. We found 4 different species of shark that were lost to science that had been gone for a long time. One that hadn't been seen in 70 years, which was pretty cool.
Whoa.
What else? A monkey called a Miller's grizzled langur that had been lost. It had been lost for a while, and then there was like some photos from I think 2012, 2014, and then we found it again recently. Mm-hmm. So that was pretty cool. We got some of the best footage. Yeah, there you go. Grizzled. Good luck. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, that's the monkey?
Hey, I know that guy.
Yeah, there you are.
Yeah. This is us like finding him there. And yeah, a big leopard species that we found that was just pretty cool. That's not our photo, but that's one of the ones we went off of, I believe. Yeah, so it's a bunch of fun stuff.
Dude, Luke was telling me when Luke Caverns, the dude who hooked us up. Yeah. Shout out to Luke.
Good dude.
He was in here like last week, and he was explaining to me that I guess he went to paramedic school, and what they taught him was that there's basically no snake in the United States that can kill you unless you're allergic to the venom. So like if you get bit by like a Western diamondback or an Eastern diamondback and you're not actually allergic to the venom, you could just like chill for a couple of days and you'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think that might be an oversimplification. You everybody reacts differently to different venoms. That's something that is not like widely explained. Right? So some people have relatively minimal reactions to venom, and other people have bad reactions to venom. But it's your allergy to venom that can oftentimes kill you. And especially if you've been bitten by something once, then you develop an allergy almost without question. But if you're bitten by a coral snake, you're going to die. Like there's no...
A coral snake?
Yeah, the coral snakes you guys have here and stuff, like they'll get you. And it's funny because like you see things like I watched Yellowstone pretty recently. And,
oh, really?
Yeah, in one of the scenes, Rip like throws a snake on this like developer guy, and it's a Western diamondback, and it bites him, and he like drops dead in like 6 feet. And it's like, nah, that's not how it works. Like you'd get bitten, your hand would start to rot off, it would swell, all the tissue would be black. You'd make it to the hospital, they'd probably have to chop off part of your limb, and then you'd be okay. Like you don't just drop dead after 6 feet.
Right.
But it's, I mean.
He said there was one snake specifically in the Amazon that you absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, you're dead within hours. I forget what it was. Do you remember what it was, Steve?
There's lots. It's definitely not correct. There's lots of snakes globally that you are going to die.
Really?
Mamba, you're going to die.
Really?
Taipan, if you're left untreated, you will die. There's no question.
Okay.
Mamba, taipan, coastal or inland, most of the sea snakes, like there's a lot of species that if you're bitten by certain vipers, you're going to die if you're left untreated. Like it doesn't matter who you are, you will die if left untreated. Most of our snakes in the United States do not have potent enough venom, to kill a person. But if it's still left untreated, you'll die. Like you'll die of sepsis, you'll die of infection, like
or your hand will like rot and
it'll melt
you'll
off.
You'll have to get it amputated like Manny's finger.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Have you seen the video of him getting bit?
Manny?
Yeah.
No.
Oh my God.
It's brutal.
Dude. Well, you can see like the camera guys are everywhere and the producers are everywhere and they got him doing it. He actually grabbed it once and like, oh, we didn't get a good enough shot. We were a little bit out of the focus was a little soft. Let's do it again, Manny. And then he like goes back again. He grabs it, like he puts his hand down on the head, you know, like that, like puts his finger down on the top of his head, and like grabs it, and the thing wraps around to the side and like got one fang into his finger.
Oof.
And Manny like looks up after he grabs it, like smiles at the camera, like, hey, got me. They thought he was joking at first. And he's like,
no.
He picks it up, then they finally put it down. He's like, yeah, we probably have to go.
Jesus.
And then there was like I forget how long he said the ride was, at least a 2-hour drive.
Oh, wow.
Because they were in the middle of Texas somewhere, and they had to find a hospital.
Yeah, and that's what's so cool and calm about Manny. Like, I don't know him that well, but I've met him a bunch of times. He's just so like, got me. You know, it's like he's doing his alligator stuff, or I don't know if he showed you the video where he catches a mako shark by hand.
Oh yeah, we watched all that shit.
He's
dude.
nuts, man. He's a crazy. He's like he's a gone era of person. You know what I mean? Like he's from another time. He's such a cool guy.
And the videos of him levitating those alligators are absolutely insane.
Wild.
The fucking what did he call it? They called it the like the river beast or something, or the canal monster. That's what it was, the canal monster. It was like a 20-foot alligator. He swam down, and the thing was like trying to get away from him for like 30 minutes. And he was like chasing it all around. The thing tried to go hide down in the mangroves, and he kept pulling it out.
Oh,
and
goodness.
Eventually, they got like pissed off and swam away. But
he's nuts. It's a crazy thing to do.
He's very rare type of human being. He is, dude.
That's for sure. He's so cool. I mean, I have so much respect for those guys that just, you know, like times have changed. You can't just go harass alligators and stuff, and rightfully so. But those guys that like from Manny's era and stuff that just went and figured it out, you know, they're just like, I don't believe this. I don't believe that swamp donkey is a mindless killing machine. I'm going to get in there and fiddle with it and see what happens. Like, so much respect for that. I think it's amazing.
Yeah. Well, it's his view on sharks specifically is like very real and unique. Because I mean, I don't know about you, but like when I go on Instagram, there's like all these people I follow that like they swim with the sharks, they go out with tiger sharks, and they talk about like, they're so majestic, they're so beautiful.
Lots.
Look at this beautiful girl swimming up to us.
Yeah.
She's so sweet. And all this stuff. And Manny's like, this is not good that these people have these Instagram videos. He's like, this is a wrong portrayal of these beasts. You cannot treat them like this. Stay away from them. He explains, he goes, these girls in Hawaii or wherever they are swimming with these tiger sharks.
Yeah.
What she does not explain to you is that they are very well-fed tiger sharks.
Right.
They are not hungry.
Right.
If this shark was hungry and not well-fed, you're dead meat.
Yeah. Well, he's right, but to play devil's advocate to that, I think it's pendulous, right? Like the perception of this is pendulous, and what I mean is, 20 years ago, if you wanted to see a picture of a shark, you saw a guy killing a shark, like a guy standing with a fishing rod next to a big dead shark, right, on the internet, whatever. And you're like, oh, that was cool. That was like the cool thing. Okay, now the pendulum has swung probably too far the other way, where I can't open up my phone without seeing a gorgeous gal in a skimpy bikini next to a giant tiger shark telling you it's her best friend. Okay, that's too far the other way.
That's a little too far.
Yeah, you know, and both sides are probably wrong. Like the reality, and the pendulum will probably swing back slowly, is that it needs to be somewhere in the middle, where it's like, well, here are these animals, they're cool, we need to respect them, we need to have a healthy understanding of them, we don't need to go out and kill everyone, we also don't need to get naked and swim next to them and pretend they're puppy dogs. You know, it's like the reality's somewhere in the middle. And I think I'd rather have the perception of like, don't kill these things, they're cool, they're interesting, they're important, than go out and hammer them. But like I said, I think the reality, it just needs to kind of land somewhere in the middle. Yeah, is my opinion of it.
Yeah, I mean, it is fucking freaky though. Like the going out there and swimming with these things with no cage or at least no spear gun with you, just in case something goes wrong. Like, that's scary, man.
It is, but you know, a lot of the places they do it, like you said, like the girls in Hawaii, Tiger Beach here in the Bahamas and stuff, the sharks are used to people, they're fed every day, they're very habituated animals.
They're very well fed.
Yeah, and that's very different from Like I've run into some tiger sharks, like really remote places, the Maldives and stuff like that, where they come in all fired up, arches locked, pecs locked, and you're like, holy shit, this is scary. And you're really glad you have a camera to push or a spear gun to hold in between you and get out of the water.
Right.
And, it's like, it's just different situations. Like
I think there was a girl who got eaten alive in at like Pig Island in
the Bahamas.
In the Bahamas, yeah. I think it was like near Staniel Cay.
By a tiger shark?
By a tiger shark, like right off the beach. Like they were doing they were swimming with the pigs. And the boat,
I didn't know that.
The boat was anchored in like 6 feet of water right off the beach.
And they saw the tiger shark and they're like, oh, it's fluffy or whatever.
I think it just pulled up out of nowhere.
Really?
I don't know if they saw it beforehand, but this was like 2 years ago.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, and she got ripped apart, eaten alive, just like the guy in fucking Egypt, man.
If I'm a tiger shark, there's nowhere better to be than at a pig island.
There you go. That's the story right there. Woman who was killed in a shark attack was following dreams. This is not it. This is the one I was talking about was the Bahamas.
Oh, interesting.
Pig Island of the Bahamas. Yeah, that's it right there. Snorkeling with pigs.
Oh, wow.
21-year-old girl.
Shame. It's a pity, especially when these people go because they want to have these interactions, and they again, like they see it on Instagram or whatever, and they're like, oh, I want to have this interaction. I want to get this photo, and then it results in something like that. It is sad. I think the biggest problem, and I believe this to be the case across everything, is like understanding. You don't see somebody hunting a tiger shark with a fishing rod or swimming with one in a bikini and go, I'm going to do that without any understanding. You couldn't go kill it with your rod and reel if you're a bass fisherman, right? And you're probably not going to be the guy swimming or the gal swimming with it just because you swam in a pool once before. You know what I mean?
Right.
You've got to learn and take it slow and understand and like get comfortable and then do these things. And I think that's like what's happened in our digital age, where you just see the snapshot on TikTok, Instagram, whatever, and you're like, I'm going to go do that. And then you just try and do it because you've seen other people do it. And it's like, that's not how these things work. Not in the wildlife world, I can tell you that.
Right.
You have to take your time, understand the animal, understand all of the environmental conditions around it. Is it hungry? Is it full moon? Is the water clear? Is it dirty? Like all these factors that go into making those choices. It's not just like, oh, here's a shark, let's jump in.
Right. Are there guys on a dock filleting fish like 20 feet away from you?
Exactly, dude. Exactly. Like, anybody will get hurt doing that. It's just like you have to be smarter than that when you do these things.
I think one of the things I'm probably afraid of more so than sharks are giant barracudas.
Yeah?
I don't know why they creep me the fuck out, bro.
They're crazy when they're sitting there like dead still.
They're so creepy, dude.
Yeah,
They're so creepy looking.
They have those big teeth.
And they fuck people up. I had a buddy
who got bitten on the foot in Belize. He was hanging his foot over a dock in Belize, and all of a sudden,
not even in the water.
No, he was just sitting with his feet in the water next to his wife on the end of a dock in Belize, and all of a sudden, he just felt it on his foot, and he looked down, his foot was shredded, like 20-something stitches.
God,
he wasn't even like a dive guy, ocean guy, anything. He was just sitting on a dock drinking a Colic, which is their beer.
Yeah.
Colic, yeah, and he got hammered on the foot, and it was pretty gnarly. Like he had a shit ton of stitches.
Have you ever eaten barracuda?
Not the one here, because don't they have SIG or something here?
Yeah, I from what I hear is the ones that have SIG are the ones that are up north in the colder climates, and the one down here in the warm climates don't have that.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
But my dad brought me some fish bread the other day, and he was like, "How was that? How was that fish?" I'm like, "The kingfish is great." He's like, "That's barracuda."
No way.
I'm like, "What? Are you serious?"
Smoked fish dip.
It's still good. Yeah, smoked cuda.
Dude, you guys do so well with fish here. It's like, man, my favorite part of Florida, like, it's probably the gators and the fish and stuff, but outside of that is the food and the hangout. Like, we went to this barbecue place last night. We were there for like 5 hours.
Really?
We ate like 9 pounds of smoked meat, a bunch of beers. There's good live music. It's such a vibe here.
Yeah, man.
I love it.
I love Florida too. I've been all over the place. I'm not everywhere you've been, but I've been to a lot of places, and there's no place that I love more than this area of Florida, man. It's so unique. Are there barracudas in California?
We have Pacific barracuda, which are much smaller. They're a schooling fish, and they're pretty slimy and gross. They're pretty good smoked. Like, you take it and smoke it, like butterfly it up and smoke it, teriyaki grill. It's good, but it's not like these things. They're like a big barracuda where I'm from is like this big.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're not these big giant.
They get as big as this table here.
Oh, I've seen them. Yeah, I've seen them out diving the Air Force towers and stuff. They're creepy, and the way they sit there, it's like suspended animation. The way they just like sit there staring at you. Like their tail barely moving. They're crazy.
What I hate is that whenever we go diving, they're always fucking hanging out under the boat.
Yeah.
So it's like, I can't get back on the boat. The fuck,
You're like looking there guarding your
there's
boat.
a 10-foot barracuda under the boat. And then spearfishing too. Like almost like in my experience spearfishing here, luckily, knock on wood, I've never had to deal with sharks fucking with me. But I've been in many situations where I've been coming to the surface and I've had like 4 barracudas charging me.
Just hanging around, like looking for something.
They're coming up out of the abyss trying to get my fish.
Oh, interesting. That's crazy. Yeah, they're weird fish. And I don't know if you've ever seen like a jaw mount of one.
I don't think so.
Like all the skin removed from the jaw. Their teeth are so big in ratio to like
they're like razors.
Yeah, they're a crazy thing. Which like look at these things, man. Like the megalodon. Like look at the size of that tooth. The great white shark tooth is like that big. Like that's a scary thing. Yeah, and that's not even a big meg tooth. Like it's maybe a medium sized one, but a great white shark tooth's like a fifth that size. That's insane to think those things were cruising around. Yeah.
And the fact that this thing could potentially be 6 million years old is really insane.
It's pretty wild. I learned something interesting about it yesterday. The dark coloration that you see on it is from the tannins in the water staining it as it gets exposed. When it comes out, it would be ivory white, or maybe not quite ivory, but like much, much lighter in color from being fossilized. And it's actually just the tannins in the water that stain it that darker color.
What is it called?
Tannins. It's like what you get in, like when you make a cup of tea or even coffee. That's tannins. It's the stuff that leaches out of plants. Yeah, that's what stains it.
Have you ever seen the YouTube channel called Jug Squad?
No, Joke Squad?
Jug, Joog.
No, what is that?
There's this kid Jack who lives right down the street, like 5 minutes away from here, and he has this big YouTube channel with like millions of subscribers. And now like he started out doing pranks and stuff, but then he recently started hunting for megalodon teeth. So they go down to Sarasota.
Okay, that's where we were.
Okay, they go to the beach, and he's got his bedroom is filled with megalodon teeth, like as big as this cup.
Oh no way.
Yeah, dude.
He crushes it.
Oh, dude, he's got so many, and like there's so many people who are fascinated in watching those videos where they hunt for those teeth.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild how there's so many of them here, and it's so easy to, like, not really hard to find them on the beach.
So he does the like beach combing thing, like he walks along the beach.
Yeah, they walk along the beach and they like dig through the sand and they find them somehow.
Wow. I
don't know like what his specific tactics are in finding them, but
this is a whole new world for me. So I love this like finding rare stuff. Obviously, I find a lot of rare animals. I'm big into mushroom hunting. I've done that for a lot of years.
Mushroom hunting?
Yeah, finding wild mushrooms.
Really?
To eat. Yeah, like big porcini, chanterelles, black trumpets, all the different species. You guys don't have a lot of them here. In California, we have a lot.
Right.
So it's like adult Easter egg hunting. You're walking through the woods looking for these special little prizes growing out of the dirt. And that's the same rush that I got, because yesterday was my first time I've done this kind of fossil hunting. It was the same rush that I got from that. It's really fun.
Aren't there like certain kind of mushrooms that grow off of animals? I forget what it's. There's like a certain type of mushroom that like fungus that grows out of the heads of certain animals.
Oh yeah, the cordyceps. They grow out of like if you look up cordyceps mushrooms, they grow out of insects and take over their brains, zombify them, make them behave differently. They're fascinating.
What the? That is bizarre.
It's the whole see these. See you can see them in the. What is this? Free shipping?
Oh shit! What is that? What is that? An ant?
The second one over, I think it's growing out of insects too.
Go scroll down.
Yeah, that's an ant.
Those are all mushrooms growing out of these fucking things.
Correct. Yeah, look at the insect on the far right there, or that one even. So, yeah, zombie fungus. So it takes over their biology, the chemistry of their brain, actually controls them and tells them what to do. And then when it gets to a certain point, it erupts. The TV show, the HBO show, The Last of Us, did a really good job sort of explaining it. I mean, it's a fictional show, but like it's the idea is that these cordyceps mushrooms transfer to humans, and then humans end up being zombies and melting like these bugs.
Has that ever happened?
No, not yet, thankfully. But it might, and that's the whole sort of idea of The Last of Us. Yeah, here you go. This is The Last of Us.
Oh God,
that's the zombie fungus. It's a real thing, and they do a great job in that TV show, by the way. But it's pretty wild. Fungus are incredible.
Yeah, man, that's nuts.
Yeah, look at that. Full mushrooms growing out of that bug's head.
Where do you find these kind of mushrooms that you're hunting for? Is this in California?
Yeah, I don't find these. I don't look for zombie fungus. I look for yummy ones.
Okay.
No, we go in Northern California in the winter, in the wet season, up into like the redwood forests and areas like that. And
up near Santa Cruz, that area?
even further north.
Oh, further
like,
north. Okay.
Yeah, like way north of San Francisco.
Oh, wow.
Like near the Oregon border. And hike the redwoods and stuff. And we find chanterelles, which are big golden ones, porcini, which are like giant phallic looking ones, a whole bunch of other species, and make these crazy wild meals. I have friends who are chefs and stuff, and they come with make these crazy wild meals. It's really fun.
You ever get any psychedelic ones?
I've found hundreds of them, thousands of them, but I've actually never done them myself.
Are they in the same area as the porcini mushrooms?
So where we hunt, I probably shouldn't tell too many people this, but where we hunt, there aren't out in the wild. Where they are is where people have intentionally. It's like, you know what chameleon ranching is here in Florida?
No.
Let's talk about that in a second. But it's like people have actually intentionally spread the spores around, like, my buddy knows them really well. There'll be like a McDonald's parking lot in Berkeley, California, and he's like, oh, right in that parking lot in that mulch, there's a ton of the psychedelic mushrooms. And you go over there and there's these little mushrooms, and there'll literally be people like lined up for the drive-through, and my buddy will be picking them out of the mulch, and they're the psychedelic mushrooms. Yeah.
That's fucking weird.
Yeah. But people have like put the spores in certain areas, and it's the same thing as this newfound thing that I'm sort of just getting caught up on called chameleon ranching. Mm-hmm. You haven't heard of this?
Never.
Literally right around here, St. Pete, Tampa, bunch of different, near Orlando, bunch of different spots. People have taken chameleons, which are a high value pet. You know, people want to own chameleons. Not you or I, but reptile people.
Yeah.
Like want to own these panther chameleons and a bunch of other species, flapneck chameleons and stuff, veiled chameleons, and they go and release them in their neighborhood. And because Florida is Florida and everything survives here, they go gangbusters. And now my buddy Billy, that kid who dropped me off, he was telling me how, because he's a scientist. He's a local scientist here in Florida, and he does a lot of reptile work.
Really?
Yeah, he's a super cool kid, but he does turtle stuff. But he was telling me how the chameleon ranchers, like, it's becoming a bit mafioso, because a chameleon can be worth like $2-3 grand, right? So they'll buy 2 or 3 of these chameleons, go and release them in a neighborhood that has all the perfect vegetation and right habitat, and then they'll check up on them every few months. And from 2 chameleons, there'll be 10 chameleons, there'll be 30 chameleons, there'll be 50 chameleons. But then it becomes mafioso, because these guys want to take these chameleons that they've ranched and sell them into the pet trade. But kids like Billy will go and find them and be like, oh, cool, a panther chameleon, and start keeping them. Guys will come running out with shotguns, and because they'll do it on private property, guys will come running out with shotguns, and they'll chase you off, and they're being protective over their illegally ranched chameleons that are in like suburban neighborhoods.
Whoa.
And this is like a thing.
Nuts.
Right here. Like,
can you pull up what they look like?
Type in panther chameleons. They're my favorite.
And those are just running around in some of these neighborhoods around here?
I bet you within 10 to 15 minutes of where we're sitting right now, there's a wild population of these guys.
Really?
Check these guys out. Yeah.
That thing.
Type in panther chameleon. Oh, yeah, you put ranching, but I was just going to say Florida. But yeah, it's like a big thing.
And how much do they go for?
I think like $2 to $3 grand. Like, yeah, there's a kid with a bunch of them on his head that he's probably, on his YouTube channel. I'm sure he's found these around Florida.
I've never seen one.
No, but because that's the thing, you got to know where to go. Wild chameleons in Florida, it's like it's becoming a thing, and it's becoming bigger and bigger, and people are, because all you have to do is let them go, and then you go collect them and sell them. But that's terrible, because it's an invasive species. They go out of control, blah blah blah. But then there's all these people that are protective over it.
What do they eat?
Insects.
Insects.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Chameleons shoot their tongues out and catch little insects and pull them back in.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's that one got a big horn on its face?
Yeah. That's called a Jackson's chameleon.
Okay.
They look like a little triceratops. And then there's so there's little panthers. Yeah. Pretty cool,
bro.
And they get that red color and everything. They're crazy animals.
That's cool, man. So now you're kind of like doing more stuff. You're traveling and doing stuff on your own, creating your own kind of content for your YouTube stuff, not so much the television stuff.
I'm doing both. We have 3 projects in the work for next year for big TV shows, big TV networks, and I own a production company that. So for everything you see that I'm on camera, that's like maybe 50% of what I do. The other 50%, I'm behind the camera, like that history show I told you about with Andrew Eucles. Like I just produced that.
Oh,
So,
really?
Yeah. So
you'll hold the camera and shit?
I don't hold the camera. I produce. So
Okay.
I have camera guys and stuff.
You know what's going on. You know how to make shit happen.
Yeah. I make the whole show. So I actually own a company that makes like high-end wildlife productions. Wildlife adventure TV shows, series for Discovery, Nat Geo, History Channel, Vice, a whole bunch of different places.
Really?
Yeah. So that's like my main thing that I do is I make all these various shows and TV shows, and I'm on about half of them. You would never even know I'm involved in the other half because I'm off camera producing them. And then just recently, because of the state of affairs with television, I mean, do you have cable?
No.
Exactly.
I got YouTube TV.
Yeah, well, that's good. But nobody has TV anymore. Nobody has cable anymore. So we just literally 2 months ago decided, hey, like we're really good at making media. Like we've been doing it, high level professionally on major cable networks for a long time. Let's start doing it ourselves. So we're going to start putting out like really good high end polished media on YouTube for free and see if we can build an audience that way so that it's self-perpetuating and we don't have to be chasing TV networks for money.
Yeah, that's a great idea, man. But is it working well?
We're 2 months in, and we just, I think, day before yesterday, or maybe yesterday, we hit 250,000 subscribers on YouTube.
Shit. You're on fire.
So it's going pretty well. Yeah, I mean, I don't know much about it, but we just do all these various things. Like we're having fun with the YouTube thing. I have a podcast that's also on YouTube called The Wild Times. That's doing pretty well. Making these TV shows for all these networks, standing in a swamp, making a watch commercial
Getting
for Garmin.
struck by lightning.
Yeah, exactly. So, just sort of put it all together, but it's all in one vein. It's all in the vein of adventure and wildlife and connecting with animals, and it's fun. I like what we do. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah, that's cool. I always wonder like what's going to happen with media. I always like wonder like the evolution of it and like what it's going to be like in the next 10 years. Is there going to be all YouTube channels, all people like creating stuff, their own content on the internet, monetizing it, or like are these big TV networks still going to be like the gatekeepers? Yeah,
are they going to rebound? Is it going to change? Like who knows? And that's why that's why we try to dip our hands with my company into a little bit of everything, just try all the various different things and just see how it's all going. But it's fun, man. You're crushing it. Your podcast is amazing. Like people love it. It's growing crazy as well. I mean, I think you're doing all the right things.
Yeah, I like having people like you on here, man, more than anything. This is the most fascinating shit to talk about.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, the reason I ask about the media shit is like because I kind of come from the same world, like shooting stuff for television and a lot of, especially like underwater stuff, and like big into the underwater stuff. And I've spent a lot of time like years developing. Like it seems like you've just always been super successful, but like in my early experience, I spent years like developing, shooting, editing, and dealing with production companies and TV networks and going to pitch meetings and getting as far as green light meetings after like 3 years and finally being right there, and then having some fucking executive at Viacom saying nope.
Yep.
Like this does not fit with our current advertising package that we have going. You know what
Change
I mean?
the mandate, new head of network, whatever. Right. Yeah. No, I've been through all of that like many times. It's incredibly frustrating. You lose tons of money, tons of hours, tons of sleep. I mean, but it's not all, it certainly hasn't always been successful. I mean, I spent 3 years where we lived on my wife's part-time teacher salary pitching stuff before the first thing got picked up.
Really?
Like that's a lot of top ramen. And then the first thing took and, did that for a few years and then started this tiny company. It was just my wife and I, and she was doing the bookkeeping. She doesn't know anything about TV, and I was pitching, and then hired our first employee, then our 10th employee, and so just built it up over time. But it's not easy, and with the state of media now, but I should say the state of TV, not the state of media, who knows where it's going? It's really like, that's a whole nother world. That's a whole nother business, but like, who knows where media is going to go? And I think the future, and I wish I jumped on this train 10 years ago when everybody else did, but I think the future is YouTube. I think that's what people want to consume. I don't think they want these crazy TV shows anymore. Nobody wants to sit through a commercial, that's for sure.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say.
I think people just have developed, I think especially young people have developed an incredible bullshit detector when it comes to television being overproduced. Like that's, I talk about this all the time with people that I come in here that talk about specifically like the UFO stuff that are like involved in the History Channel shows and like the Skinwalker Ranch type shows. And like when I watch that, I'm just like, oh my God, like, are you serious? This is so produced. And I think people want to see shit that's more raw. That's more
agree.
just like POV run and gun type stuff that's not super edited or doesn't have crazy like music to it, even though that's cool. But like when you start to add the dramatic shit to it, I think people start to like be like, you know, they don't want to see that as much. They want to see the other stuff.
The faking stuff's so boring and it's so dull. And I understand how it got there because over years, like a net TV network would be like, hey, we need to be bigger. We need to be crazier. We need to be louder. So the producers have no choice but to be like, okay, well, I don't know how to make this ghost hunting show where we're not finding anything louder.
right.
I guess let's knock over a lamp and see the guy jump. You know, it's like, okay, like what else are we going to do? So it's just this perpetual bullshit cycle, like you said. And I think young people are just like, I know they just knocked over that lamp. Like, I know a ghost didn't do that. Like, who fucking cares? This is dumb. I'd rather watch a kid with a dip net in a pond in Florida trying to catch weird fish.
Right.
Because at least he's genuine and he cares and it's real and it's fun.
Right.
And so that's like what we're doing on our YouTube. Like, I was fossil hunting with these great guys yesterday. I did a turtle survey while I was here. We went bow fishing for invasive species. Like, we've done a lot of really fun stuff. And I'm hoping that because those are the things I'm genuinely interested in, which is what I've always done, is just to do the things that I really like doing, that people will relate to it and enjoy it. But if not, like, who cares? You know, I came down to Florida for a week. I'm doing a few other projects like this. Like, I'm having a great time.
I think there's another element to it too, is like the fact that they can interact directly with you and or support you directly, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's different when you're on a TV show and it's like, you know, that network has X amount of shows or whatever. There's no direct connection to you. This is so much more intimate.
Yeah, you're like 3 steps removed, whereas now I will respond to people on YouTube. I'll be like, yeah, man, thanks for watching that. Like, what else should I do? You know, people are like, no way, this guy like talked to me. I want to see him do this. And I'm like, cool, I'll try to do it. You know, which is fun too, by the way. Like at this Animal Con thing I went to in Orlando, these guys were all talking about like, how do you manage the hate and all that? And I get it too. Everybody gets it now, which that part of it sucks. And I still maybe let it get to me more than I should. But like the other side of that, you know, for every one hateful comment, there's 200 positive ones, and they're fun. Like the people are like, I love this guy. This is so cool. Like, I wish he would do this. I wish I could learn about this. And I'm like, stand by. Like, I'm trying to do it all.
Yeah.
It's fun.
That's cool, man.
I'm sure you're the same with the podcast. Like, people are kind of asking you, have this person on and do this.
Oh yeah, all the time, man.
Yeah, and it's great. Isn't that fun to have that like input from people? Like, it's great.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is, and it's cool to see like shit evolving that way, especially with like the evolution of podcasts. And I think it's like changing because remember, like 10 years ago, people would be like, "Oh no, YouTube people don't want to watch something more than 3 minutes long. They're going to lose their attention span."
For sure.
The podcast is like the complete polar opposite of that.
Hours. Yeah.
And it proves that completely wrong.
Exactly. And I love it. I think it's great. It's so nice to sit down with a guy like you, have a real conversation, you know, drink, take a leak, like whatever, you know, it's like, let's just talk like people. And I think that's what people want now. They want that. This is real. You and I are having a real conversation as buddies, you know, that's a real thing. And it's nice to share that with people.
Yeah. Well, you got to catch a flight, bro.
I gotta get back to California.
Fuck. When are you gonna move to Florida?
Dude, I don't know. Every time I come here, I swear to God, I'm moving here. I swear. It's
the
so
weather's
cool
not
out
as
here.
good. You guys got way better weather, and you guys got beautiful fucking landscape there. Like you can be in the ocean and the snow in the same day. Like,
it's true. But you guys have all the swamp critters, and that is pretty fun for a guy like me.
Yeah. Well, we'll get you. Hopefully, you're coming back down in the near future. We'll get you back on again.
Dude, thanks so much for having me. It's been a blast.
Where can people find your YouTube channel?
Yeah, it's just my name, Forrest Galante on YouTube.
Okay.
You know, I have all the social media channels. I always have shows on Discovery Channel that I'm on and a bunch of shows on other places. And anybody that checks it out, I appreciate it, but no pressure.
Sweet. I'll make sure I link it below so they can find it.
Thanks, buddy.
All right. Good night, world.
Easy.
Woo!